best government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time.
Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public is not being told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side.
Welcome to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6, and it is upon us. Basically, Tuesday is here. Peter Blexley's also here, and we're going to talk about an awful lot of things, including, of course, the front pages, in which it looks as though the coalition of the willing, set up just on Sunday by Sir Keir Starmer, is already falling apart. Trump lambasts Europe for showing weakness, says President Trump on the front page of the Times. He criticises the Euro demand for US security guarantees, and he's halted, by the way, Ukraine aid. They didn't quite catch up with that before they went to press. Growing fears he will halt Ukraine aid. He has, in fact, halted Ukraine aid, and he's basically said until Volodymyr Zelensky decides that he wants to have proper peace, we won't be giving them any more money. And meanwhile, over in Europe, they're all scurrying around trying to work out what to do next. Trump to Zelensky on the front page of the Telegraph, your time's almost up. A peace deal is not that hard, as you heard him saying on the news. Just get in a room, do a deal. The deal's not that difficult to do, and let's get on with it. Meanwhile, on the front page of the Financial Times, Europeans move towards seizing 200 billion euros worth of frozen Russian assets, which tells me that actually they haven't frozen them yet, they haven't seized them yet, and so the promise that we're going to give £2.26 billion worth of these frozen Russian assets would appear to be slightly premature. Wouldn't you say? We don't actually have the money, so we're having to stump up the money to give to Volodymyr Zelensky as apparently a loan in the hopes that he's going to pay it back. You know, yeah, I gave some money to a homeless guy yesterday on the way home. I said, this is just a loan, by the way. I'll come back tomorrow and you can pay it back to me. It's the same idea, isn't it? Front page of The Sun goes a slightly different way. Meg's the joy of Sussex. Meghan Markle reckons her Sussex title is meaningful, despite visiting the county for a total of only 6 hours. She faced ridicule after gushing about the family name in an interview to promote her new Netflix show, which we'll show you a video clip of a little bit later on, in which she says working mothers can produce a really, really healthy and wonderful fruity breakfast for their children if they happen to have about 6 hours to spare. I mean, you can't believe this woman. Absolutely Incredible. Coming up, we're going to also be talking about the cost of UK crime. There's so much of it now in this country. It's costing about £250 billion. We'll tell you why Britain pays £180,000 an hour to close wind farms down so that we don't actually get any energy from them at all. Also, we'll be finding out why the Speaker is spending something like £180,000 flying around the world, glad-handing various people from Singapore to Jakarta to Los Angeles to Japan. Nobody knows why he's doing it, but all we know is it's costing us an awful lot of money. He's staying in five-star hotels and having a great time. What on earth is that all about? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's get a voice note montage and see what we can see.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show as ever.
Morning, Mike. It's Lisa from Canterbury.
Morning, Mike. Ian from Nottingham. Hope you're well. Love the show.
I mean, Starmer, you can't even protect Kent, let alone Kyiv. Have a great day, mate.
Yes, as we told you yesterday, you know, the answer is not to continue to give bucket loads of money to Ukraine until we run out of it. That's not going to work. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. I mean, look at that. Changed just as the music stopped. Peter Blexley, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Governor.
Good to see you. I spent a long time yesterday trying to explain to everybody, who mostly agreed with me, that the way forward in Ukraine is not to continue to give them a bucket load of money and let them waste it all and you know, just fire missiles at the Russians to no avail because the Russians have taken 20% of their land. The smart thing to do is to try and find some kind of peace. We spoke a lot about Keir Starmer and his coalition of the willing. It looks as though the coalition of the willing has now gone down the gurgler because Donald Trump's just gone, well, I don't know what you people are talking about. We're not doing that. You've even admitted that you can't do anything without America. So why don't you do something with America?
Quite what that collection of beanbag politicians from Europe thought they would achieve by getting together on Sunday is beyond me.
They all fancied a trip to London, I suspect.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
But anybody with any semblance of grey matter between their ears knows that this matter will only be resolved with some input from America.
Exactly.
Donald Trump.
And with America leading the way, frankly.
Yes.
Right.
So it's all wishful thinking, grandstanding, and
virtue signalling.
Of course, of which so many of those European politicians got PhDs in virtue signalling.
Well, I said yesterday, 3 weeks ago, they'd never heard of a peace deal for Ukraine. Suddenly now they want one.
Yeah. Exactly.
3 weeks ago.
Let's rewind a couple of months before Donald Trump had taken office for the second time. Nobody was speaking in terms of peace.
No.
No one. Not a soul.
No.
Not a politician.
Not a sausage.
Anywhere.
Bugger all, you might say.
Yeah. So Donald Trump has seized the initiative, has led, then so many people have got their knickers in a twist over three geezers having a fallout in a room.
Oh, yeah, because he's a bit rude.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Do me a favour.
Think of some of the meetings.
Some of these people never been in meetings where you shout at each other.
Exactly.
Right.
Where you have differences of opinion and robust exchanging of views.
Yeah. All right.
I've been in many of those.
Indeed.
And you take it on the chin.
And you walk out some of them. Some other people walk out of some of them. Yeah. And then you meet up later and you figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you come to some form of agreement eventually.
Of course you do.
But that seems to be beyond the comprehension of so many of our, quite frankly, failing
Keir
European
Starmer
leaders.
prefers the hugging technique where people turn up in Downing Street, he gives them all a hug, and apparently we all think the same thing. What an absolute travesty of democracy that is.
Yeah, whilst having lentils for lunch, a smoothie in between meetings, and making yourself comfortable on a Downing Street beanbag.
Yes. All the while wearing clothes bought for you by somebody else.
Yes.
Marvellous, isn't it?
Is it any wonder that we're in the state
Does it
we're
make
in?
you feel proud to be British? And all these bozos who are going, isn't Keir Starmer brilliant? He's leading from the front. This has been his best week ever since he's been in charge. And you go, well, what's he actually doing? What has he achieved? This idea that he wants a coalition of the willing means nothing. You know, when he says we're going to stand up for Ukraine, and what does that mean? And for as long as it takes. How long is that? Can't say. I mean, it's just meaningless, absolute bilge and BS, and I'm sick to death of it.
And unfortunately, times of war are a Prime Minister's wet dream.
Yeah.
Look at Blair, for example.
Oh, he loved a war.
Sorry to ruin your
Blair?
morning, everybody.
He did love a war.
Didn't they? Because,
illegal or otherwise.
Exactly, because they posture and they grandstand and they think it's going to be their defining moment through which history will remember them. Yeah, Blair, we remember you for
that's
that.
Exactly right. He was right about that. Not in the way that you thought.
Yeah, we truly remember you for that. And of course, whilst they're posturing at their lecterns and hugging various other leaders, they don't have to concern themselves with the day-to-day running of the country, which in the last 7 or 8 months, Keir Starmer has proven himself to be manifestly lamentable at.
Indeed.
So
lamentable's a good word. I like that word. Let's have a look at Starmer, because we've got a couple of clips to play you, none of which will edify your morning, I'm afraid. This is Keith Starmer, or Keith Stalin, as people like to call him, on using Russian assets to fund the war in Ukraine.
First, that we must keep the military aid to Ukraine flowing, keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia, and to that end, alongside our partnership on air defence, we're doubling down on military aid. Already this year, we've taken our support to record levels. But on Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets.
Yeah, well, he says that, but according to the Financial Times, Europe's biggest powers are swinging behind efforts to seize more than £200 billion of frozen Russian assets, which tells me they haven't actually frozen them yet, or indeed seized them. So all this money that he's planning to give to Ukraine, based on this money that we're supposed to have, we don't have.
Indeed.
So it's a loan that's actually coming from old Rachel Reeves, who's busy nodding her head behind him there. Money that we supposedly don't have.
There's so much speculative
seriously
being spouted.
Right.
Somebody else has popped their head above the parapet and said, what about £2.5 billion from the sale of Chelsea Football Club?
Yeah.
Well, where is this money?
Where is it gone?
Oh, well, yeah, where is it? What bank accounts is it sitting in? And then are you going to just send Ukraine the cash, or are you going to spend that money on armaments, bullets, bombs, and this, that, and the other, and have them shipped out?
Well, much was made of a missile deal that was done, which was supposed to use part of that 2.26 billion, by the way, it is Starmer, not 2.2 billion, 2.26 billion. He might as well be accurate, because he is a lawyer after all. He's supposed to be accurate. He says that some of that money, 1.6 billion of it, is going to be used to buy weapons, missiles manufactured in Northern Ireland. The trick of that is, though, they might be manufactured in Northern Ireland, but they're manufactured by a foreign company in Northern Ireland. So it's not actually boosting the British economy, it's boosting another country's economy in Europe, who own the actual company. So there's an awful lot of doublespeak going on. French officials have discussed a proposal for European capitals to seize the assets if Moscow were to violate a future ceasefire deal in Ukraine. So again, these assets have not been properly frozen. Nobody knows where they are. The G7 countries have agreed to freeze the assets, but they haven't decided what to do with them or where to put them. So it's all a very, very, murky world, I'm afraid.
All of it perfectly wrapped up in a veil of if, buts and maybes.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. And even if we do get that weaponry from Northern Ireland, and it does get to Ukraine, then they will need training on how to use it.
Exactly right. So that's not going to make much difference in the short term. Let's have a look at what J.D. Vance had to say on the bus stop in the Oval Office on Friday.
And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect, there was a certain sense of entitlement, and most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff, but the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelensky and, of course, President Putin, too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table, and that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelensky says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown, is I think Zelensky wasn't yet there, and I think, frankly, now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to.
And he will get there eventually, and he does have to. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump has now pushed that agenda forward by overnight cutting aid to Ukraine. He's just saying, look, until you come to the peace table, we're not going to give you any more money.
You can't knock what J.D. Vance said in that interview.
No, not at all.
You really can't. It will require Putin, Zelensky and others all to sit down and thrash out a deal.
Yeah. And Zelensky can't dictate the terms any more than Putin can dictate the terms. If America's in the middle of it, they're going to dictate the terms.
Absolutely right. And then maybe the killing will stop.
Yes.
But don't forget Keir's Coalition of the Willing.
Oh, sorry, yes, I've almost forgotten about that.
Those.
I'd almost forgotten about the Coalition of the Willing. Apparently, it seems now that their very, very nice little meeting that they had on Sunday, which emerged with absolutely nothing at all other than we must stand strong against Ukraine. Even the President of Luxembourg put the full weight of his military behind the idea that we're going to help Ukraine. I don't think they've got a military in Luxembourg, have they?
I hear they've got an amazing range of peace shooters.
I've been there, and everything's in German and French. They can't even decide what side they're on.
Yeah.
You know, what did they do during the Second World War? I don't even know if they were there, were they?
I bet the buffet was lovely on Sunday, though, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Marvellous.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Canapés to start with.
Canapés, yeah, a bit of smoked salmon.
Yeah.
You know, probably some caviar thrown in, some very
Bubbles,
nice red wine from France, no doubt.
Yeah.
A bit of champagne.
To toast the Coalition of the Willing being
The Coalition
formed.
of the Willing, yes. Are you with the Coalition of the Willing? Yeah, over there. If you're not the Coalition of the Willing, that way, please.
Yeah. But the bubbles are on that side, so you probably want to go over there.
I mean, just a joke, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, front page of the Express is a massive joke. It says that, from Starmer, the UK must lead from the front. Well, where else would you lead from?
Yeah.
The back?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you even say that? And a plonker. The Mirror, the world's worst newspaper, right? Check this out, right? This is their front page. United Kingdom. PM backed, Trump in fury. In a rare show of unity, MPs from all sides have backed Keir Starmer in his support for Ukraine against Russia. How is that a story? His support for Ukraine against Russia. Tory MP James Cleverly said he had not put a foot wrong in talks with European leaders, including Ukraine's Mr. Zelensky. But President Trump stoked discord again, saying of the hero, this guy doesn't want peace, and Europe, what are they thinking? So President Trump is not actually stoking discord, he's just stating facts.
And if you are unfortunate enough to actually buy this newspaper today, and you go to pages...
£1.70, crikey!
There you go.
I've only just seen how much it costs now.
There you go.
Blimey.
And you go to pages 4 and 5, OK? One of their banner headlines reads, Parliament United in support of Ukraine. Well, what league are Parliament United in?
I don't think they're in the league at all, are they? Non-league. You know, I'm afraid they're non-league, and they're not likely to get into the league at any point with the way their performance is going. But, you know, you just think, well, these cretins ever going to actually see reality for what it is? They sit there, they make out that they make a difference. Nobody in Ukraine really gives a stuff about Europe until they get the money. Once they get the money, then they love them, right?
Yeah.
Zelensky does his world tour, you know, he's like sort of, you know, the second coming of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. You know, everywhere he goes, he dresses in the same outfit and he leaves an awful lot richer than he arrived, right? Nobody knows what he does with the money. Nobody knows why he hasn't beaten Russia with the money he's been given. And all these sort of bleeding hearts go, oh, but, you know, he's suffering at the hands of this horrible Russians. And yes, war is horrible, I get that. And I don't support Russia at all before anybody starts accusing me of being, you know, a Putin sympathiser. I'm not. But at the end of the day, you know, something has to stop the war. And at the moment, the only thing that looks likely to do that is Donald Trump.
Can I remind you of what I said 3 years ago
Please.
when we were having a discussion about
Yes.
this? I said there is a simple way to solve this issue. Take a piece of paper like this, shove it under Zelensky's nose, right, and get him to sign it.
Yeah.
And what that piece of paper would say, welcome to NATO.
Yes.
OK? Then you could have gathered together a coalition of forces that would have gone to Ukraine and smashed Putin's troops back to Moscow in a matter of weeks. And this would have been done and dusted a long time ago. If, of course, you would have had the support of the Americans behind you. Of course, it probably was never going to happen because Sleepy Joe would have been terrified by it. All these weak-willed politicians at the time were terrified of Putin. Absolutely.
And they just
terrified.
handed over billions of dollars instead.
Yeah. Because that way, we're not actually involved, we're just signing checks.
Well, this is what Starmer's now doing. He's going, we support Ukraine. Well, how do you support them exactly? Oh, well, we give them a load of weapons and we give them a load of money. But, you know, we don't do anything else.
Yeah. And they say, oh, well, we may put British troops on the ground once a ceasefire has been agreed and blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, without American significant involvement, nothing is going to change at the moment.
All right. We're going to come back and play some clips from what happened yesterday in Parliament. But how about this from Marty in Seaham? Morning, Mike. Why didn't they spend the frozen money first 3 years ago? Very good question. Tony says, seizing legal Russian assets will destroy the UK as a destination for inward investment and Europe as well. And Sean says, morning, Mike. So now the great and the good of Europe, including our very own Keith Starling, think they can step up and sort the Ukraine situation without the USA. How? They won't speak with Putin, but as a side effect, they will completely cheese off Trump. What a blooming mess caused by these virtue-signalling, dangerous idiots. Well, this is it. But I mean, even Starmer at the same point, in the same breath as saying, you know, I'm the king of the world and I'm going to sort this all out, says we can't do it without America. Unbelievable.
And you do raise a very, very important question about what is Zelensky and Ukraine doing with the money.
Yeah.
Because
nobody knows.
It would be remiss of me not to mention that on the corruption index, in European terms, Ukraine is right up there.
Of course it is.
It's a
very corrupt country. It was always a very corrupt country, and it's still a very corrupt country. Nobody knows what's going on. They imprison people who they don't like. They imprison journalists. Journalists have died there because they started reporting on things that they weren't sure about. They fired on their own people in eastern Ukraine after 2014 when the Russians invaded Crimea then. You know, this is not a country which is purer than the driven snow. Very far from it. Let's get a voice note from Anna.
Morning, Mike. Hannah, sorry. So as well as destroying our country, the most hated Prime Minister we've ever had now wants to start World War III all on his own with the coalition of the willing who wouldn't even pay their NATO fees to Donald. So they're not willing, are they? I think that might possibly give you leave to put him forward to, you know, for Plank of the Week, if that's possible.
Oh, I think that's very possible. Not only possible, but extremely likely, to be honest. I mean, we gave Starmer a bit of a pass last week because we thought, well, he's investigating the possibility of being a world leader. But I'm afraid he's tried at being a world leader, and he's just as useless as that as he is at being Prime Minister.
Well, the trouble is he might go back to running the country, and we all know how that's been going for the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in favour of him travelling around the world to try and, you know... But, I mean, that performance that he put through in... I mean, he should have got an Oscar for that in the White House the other day, but that's another story. It's 21 minutes past 6. We've got much more to come, including the migrant story of the day. A Jamaican shooter, Peter will know what I mean by that. That's a man who shot a gun at some people. He can't be sent back to Jamaica and deported because why? His criminal record might be a problem for his job prospects. Yesterday we had the psychopathic Nigerian who was apparently possessed by the devil. He can't go home either because he's possessed by the devil. I mean, sorry, it's not working for me, this. We'll be back after this.
In terms of the end to the war, so, I mean, most commentators would accept that, unfortunately, it's extremely unlikely to impossible that Ukraine are going to reintegrate, going to be able to reintegrate all of their territory, i.e. take back the area that's been annexed by Russia. So 3 years of fighting, many commentators and actually many political leaders are thinking a deal needs to be struck at some point.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 25 minutes past 6. We've got many, many stories to do today, including mouse-to-mouse resuscitation. We'll explain all that and what that actually means. The spring scorchers on the cards, apparently, according to the Daily Mail. We're going to have 15, 16 degrees by the end of the week, which is pretty good. We've also got a story about pensioners. Apparently, if you want to apply for pensioners' credit in order to get the heating fuel allowance that's been taken away from you by this ghastly government, you have to answer not one, not two, 450 questions on a piece of online, quiz in order to try and get that money. Also, we're going to be talking about why Britain is paying apparently £180,000 an hour to keep wind farms not working. I mean, £180,000 an hour. Unbelievable. Also, the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, apparently spending £180,000 of our money flying around the world and having a great time. Peter Blexley's here. We're going to talk about what was going on in the Commons yesterday. Nigel Farage, of course, a man who really, really upsets the apple cart. He does. He's not liked, is he, down there in the Palace of Westminster?
No.
Here he is having a little exchange with the Prime Minister on Ukraine yesterday.
It may be a great irony that a Remainer Prime Minister used Brexit freedoms as effectively as he did yesterday. Indeed, as Number 10 briefed, we are now in a unique position compared to the rest of Europe, and yesterday was a triumph. I also applaud him making such positive words about President Trump and our relationship with America, even if nobody behind him agrees. But here's the key. President Zelensky has now accepted that he's going to sign the minerals agreement with America. And America's going to put in $100 billion or whatever it is, and thousands of Americans will be in Ukraine. Is that of itself enough of a security guarantee? No. Or does it mean that we need to send British troops? And if we do, given the size of our army, how many?
The mineral deal is not enough on its own. But can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
So he doesn't answer the question again, and he tries to make fun of Nigel Farage falling over Putin. Yesterday, Keir Starmer put out this tweet in which he said, economic security is national security. Right, fair enough. He then says, British jobs, British skills and British finance will pull together for our national interests to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position on peace. He then says, basically, that this will create money for people to have in their pockets. Well, how is that going to work? Exactly.
I've got a thought about creating money for British people. Let's fast forward weeks or months, and let's hope that there's a lasting, durable peace in Ukraine, and that the minerals deal has long since been signed, and so there are thousands of Americans working in Ukraine, mining these materials and all the associated things that go with that. Why don't we get an airline to put on many, many flights from Ukraine to London, so all these Americans, when they have a bit of downtime, can inexpensively fly to London and spend their hard-earned money over here.
Good idea. Why not, indeed?
I mean, it's a plan, isn't it?
It is a plan. Well, it's a better plan than what Starmer's got, isn't it?
Somebody's got to be thinking about that. Think ahead. Think about what it could do for the British economy. And not just necessarily at London, workers from Ukraine might want to fly to Newcastle for the weekend. And we all know what a great weekend
You
could
could have
get
a
in
good
Newcastle.
one there. Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, why
the
not?
South Coast, the World War II history they can explore over here. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a thought.
Increasing defence spending will bolster our national security and help to put more money in people's pockets. That's what Starmer says. By helping small business access this investment, we're opening up more opportunities for good, skilled jobs, making communities across the UK better off. No, he's not. You're going to send people to war, you complete plonker. Rodney, as we used to say, because that is his middle name, of course. You plonker. Let's have a look. Talking about plonkers, how about Ed Davey? Here he is attacking Nigel Farage.
I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement. We were all horrified by Friday's scenes in the Oval Office. President Trump's attack on the brave and dignified President Zelensky left everyone shocked and appalled, except, it seems, the honourable member for Clacton. Nobody else watching those scenes could fail to understand that we've entered a new era.
Yeah, Ed Davies threatening to throw himself into Lake Windermere as a protest against what's happening in Ukraine. After that, he's going to throw himself off Niagara Falls in a barrel. Brilliant.
But unfortunately,
I'd pay to see that.
On previous occasions when he's thrown himself off of surfboards and such like, he's had one of those life jackets on, hasn't he?
Has, yeah.
Which is a bit of horrified, shocked and appalled.
Yeah, horrified.
Oh, we were all horrified, shocked and appalled at three geezers having a tear.
There's a war going on, right? He's horrified by somebody being a bit rude.
Yeah.
And actually, to be honest, I mean, maybe I've got the wrong sort of measurement of this, because people have accused me of being rude in the past. You might be not surprised to hear. I didn't think he was that rude at all. I just thought, hang on, you're in my house, you've come here, and you've started to be a bit chippy, so I'm going to give you a bit of a slap, verbally. What's wrong with that?
Three blokes have a disagreement in a very comfortable room.
Yeah.
You know, it's not three people tooled up in a pub car park.
I mean, none of the furniture went over.
Yeah. And
nobody had to intervene to go, all right, boys.
This is in the worst of possible taste, of course.
Yeah.
But nobody died.
Quite.
Right? And I know that thousands upon thousands are dying in Ukraine. All the more reason to have a peace deal.
But these wallies like Ed Davey, right? They think it's completely fine to continue to give missiles. What does he think missiles do?
Yeah.
I would suggest to you, Mr. Ed Davey, that missiles get fired into places where people get blown up by them and die. And you don't find that horrifying. You don't find sending Ukrainian people money so that they can spend more of it on getting themselves blown up or killing Russians. But you're horrified by an argument in a room at the White House. I mean, do me a small favour, mate.
Horrified, shocked and appalled.
Yeah.
All at the same time, simultaneously, Ed. Cool, there's another candidate for Plank of the Week, isn't it?
Totally. I think I'm going to mark it down now before I forget. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. Just on the back of the good news that Trump has decided to cut the aid to Zelensky, maybe the rest will follow. Maybe Keir Starmer can get him on the phone and do what I do when people ask me to lend them some money. I say, go away for a bit, come back and tell me what you need it for, why you need it from me, and when you're going to give me the money back. And when they come back and they pass me the information, I say, no, I'm not lending you anything.
I passed a beggar yesterday on Borough High Street, right, sitting outside Sainsbury's. He goes, can you give me some money to go and buy something in there? I went, no, and just kept walking.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to do.
Clear and unequivocal.
Exactly right.
Were you horrified, shocked and appalled that he was sitting on the pavement?
No, I think he was horrified, shocked and appalled that I said no.
Yeah.
Because I knew he wasn't going to spend the money in Sainsbury's. He was going to go in the crack den round the corner and buy some crack.
And I'm horrified, shocked and appalled to hear that.
Absolutely right. One from Darryl. He says, morning, Mike. I'm actually laughing out loud. Possessed by the devil? Really? Is that all it takes to stay here? Oh, my goodness. I'm going back to bed and waking up next year. Merry Christmas. And, of course, somebody's reminded me. We did mention this story yesterday, but from David. He says, you missed the Polish guy that can't be sent back because he doesn't speak Polish. What's going on in this country? If I wasn't a pensioner, we would apply for a green card and go to the USA, the only sensible country that is looking after its people. Well, quite right too. Coming up next, speaking of which, we're going to go to the United States of America. Kinsey Schofield's going to be here because you'll be delighted to know this, Peter. Meghan Markle's got a new television series out and she's going to be showing you how to make breakfast for your children if you've got a busy working life.
It's released today on Netflix.
Yes.
I'll be rushing straight out to watch it.
I can hardly wait. I don't know why I'm clasping my hands together like this. I don't know, it just feels like I should. Anyway, so coming next, Meghan Markle, Kinsey Schofield. What could possibly go wrong?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:36. I'm Mike Graham. Peter Blexley is here with me. We've got much to discuss, including the $250 billion cost of crime hitting the United Kingdom, I should tell you. We've got loads and loads to talk about, including and notwithstanding the Ukrainian situation. I won't put up with Zelensky for much longer, it says on the front page of the Daily Mail. That's from Donald Trump, of course. But they've also got, as Meghan's new Netflix series starts, the striking similarities to Pammy's show. She's now being accused, by the way, Peter, of nicking the show's ideas from Pamela Anderson in a show that she did, a reality show some years ago.
Yeah, and Pamela Anderson has done remarkably well in reinventing herself in recent times.
She has.
And has turned out to be a tour de force when it comes to acting.
Yes.
Not just the Baywatch
Well,
stuff.
I always thought she was a very much more sort of valuable woman than she was made out to be just in Baywatch. Let's get a voice note from Phil on Ukraine.
Good morning, Mike. Keir Starmer, one of the willing. But you can see what's happening here, can't you? Keir Starmer's getting giddy. Keir thinks, oh, everybody likes me. He's jumped on the back of the morality horse and he's charging straight for Russia, and all his mates, the French and the Germans and the Belgians and the Dutch and everyone else are all saying, oh, go on, Keir, go on, keep going, son, go on. And then he's going to charge and charge and charge, and he's going to get to the edge and he's going to look around, and all those guys that were cheering him are going to be in a trench way, way back from no man's land. And then what?
I mean, it's a very good point, Phil. No man's land is exactly where Keir Starmer belongs, isn't it? No man's land. I love the idea of the morality horse.
Yes.
We must get one of those.
It's a brilliant voice.
To get up on your high,
wonderful.
get up on your high horse. Send more voice notes in. We love them. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. By the way, we're going to have a great piece of news for you later on about the bumper stickers because somebody's won something quite spectacular, but we can't say too much at the moment. Let's talk instead to Kinsey Schofield, US commentator. And, of course, so much more than that from live from California. Kinsey, very good morning to you.
Where's my bumper sticker? There's a Volkswagen Bug downstairs that's ready for the sticker.
I'm going to talk to the powers that be, and I'm going to make sure you get one sent forthwith. So that you can slap it on the back of that bumper, because that's where it needs to be. Now, you must be literally a bundle of wits waiting for this incredible new show, With Love, from Meghan. You must be waiting for it.
I mean, Meghan, some of her advice that she gave People magazine this week was how she likes to take her Chinese takeout and make it look beautiful on the plate. And, you know, that's the kind of advice I'm looking for. Expert opinions I'm looking for when it comes to making life a little bit more beautiful with my Chinese takeout.
Yes. I mean, I think we can get a pretty good flavour of what we're going to expect from the With Love show, because she's a very busy working woman, as we know, right? And she sympathises with all the other working women in America, even though she's working in somebody else's kitchen. Let's have a look at what she suggests you do for your children's breakfast platter.
You see where our rainbow is coming together here? And you don't have to do a big platter of this. You could do this with one small row for your kids for breakfast, genuinely, and it makes the morning a lot more fun. But can I just show you if you just made one? It's just a little morning plate. It's a real delight in being able to be a present parent. And it's a luxury sometimes because we all have to work. We all have a lot of stuff to do, but when you can take a minute to just...
Saturday morning.
Yeah. Finding the fun in those moments makes for a really sweet start to the weekend. We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds. Flour sprinkles, if we must. It doesn't need to be big for a party. It's how you incorporate these practices every day.
You must be married to her. Oh, hi, Meghan. What have you got for breakfast? Oh, I've made a rainbow from some fruit and some yogurt and some
Just give me a box of Lucky Charms, Mike.
Right. How about a bacon sandwich? Any chance of that? You know? What's going on? I mean, any working woman would take about 4 hours to do that. They haven't got time.
No, exactly. I'm grabbing my protein shake that's been sitting in the back of my car for 3 months. The taste is off, and I've got work to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You're driving with one hand, you're putting your lipstick on, you know, you're doing your face in the traffic.
All over the face.
You know, that's what you do. It's what people do. I mean, what the hell is she talking about?
I can
Peter
reveal,
Blexley's here.
I can reveal, Kinsey, that a friend of mine works for Netflix and was at the meeting when this whole idea was dreamt up. And what happened was the executives said to Meghan, they said, you know, you used to be an actress, apparently.
Yeah.
Do you think you could write a really hard-hitting screenplay that we could make into an award-winning drama?
Yes.
And she said, no. They said, OK. They said, is there any particular cause that you feel strongly about that you could make a hard-hitting documentary about?
Yeah.
And she said, what's the cause?
Right.
And then they said, right, OK, what can you actually do? She said, I can slice a strawberry.
Yeah.
And they said, that's it. That's the answer.
Yeah.
And this is what you get.
You would have to worry, wouldn't you, if you had shares in Netflix going, well, who's coming up with this rubbish?
Well, I do think that that's why this was not formally presented at the upfronts meeting that Netflix recently had with some of their biggest stars and investors, where they were teasing their 2025 lineup. Meghan was nowhere to be found in the paperwork. She received a brief mention when she was the butt of a joke by one of the comedians on stage. But other than that, they haven't really been promoting this. You know, I could spend an hour on Pinterest and do all of this, if not more. And this is just, it's very vanilla. It's very bland. It's very safe. And I don't understand what I think the objective ultimately is to change public perception about her. Rainbows, butterflies, bees, I'm joy, you know.
Right, but
when
it won't change public perception. It will just make us even more convinced that she's complete narcissistic Wally with nothing much to do.
You're right, because I've never seen somebody that's so impressed with themselves. So when she's excited to be showing us the mini rainbow and she's like, oh, can I show you this? What the heck I've scrolled through Instagram and see the exact same platter, you know, 967 times. These are not original ideas. These are not original thoughts. And what happened to your life of service? And I heard you a couple of times mention the Sussex line, how she's like really pushing the Sussex name. And to me, That's her trying to justify the fact that she insists we continue to refer to her as a duchess.
Right.
Well, I'm the Duchess of Sussex. That's a family name. This is really important to me. Actually, it's important for your brand, because otherwise you were the deal or no deal girl.
Right.
And your marriage to Prince Harry is the reason why Netflix gives you opportunities like this to create something hyper mediocre that anybody with an iPhone camera could create and throw up on their YouTube channel.
I mean, I made some mashed potatoes last night. I now wish I'd filmed it and sent it to Netflix to make a 10-part series, you know, because, you know, quite frankly, I'm funnier than she is, you know. I'm also drinking a glass of wine at the same time. You know, it's a much more interesting kitchen, and believe it or not, it's actually my kitchen.
It's your kitchen.
And it was a packet of Smash, wasn't it?
No. I'm not having that from you, Blexley. No, I've made it from scratch. You know, I peeled the potatoes, I put them in a pot of boiling water, I boiled the water, I put some salt in it, you know, I emptied the water out, and I put them back into the pan. I put some butter, some milk, some salt, some pepper, a little bit of mustard, and, you know, listen, that's how I roll. And I could have made that into a 3-part series, I'm sure.
You could have, because one of the things about the show is while there's cooking in the kitchen, she actually doesn't say, like, you need 1 cup of this, 1 cup of that. It's really all about her personality and conversations.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I'm saying this is a PR exercise, because we've been told through the Vanity Fair, the Hollywood Reporter, the Telegraph, and all of these prestigious outlets for the last 5 years that this woman is a bully. She's difficult to work
that's
with.
the series I would.
Spotify gave her the boot.
That's the series I would watch. I mean, her shouting at her staff and humiliating them, and then making Harry get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness because he's gone out for a beer with his mates. I would watch that show.
Yeah, I'd watch Meghan Markle trapped in a house with Thomas and Samantha Markle before I'd sit down and enjoy watching this.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Listen, Kinsey, delightful to see you as ever. The bumper stick is on its way to you, and it will be there, hopefully, God willing, in the next 3 or 4 days. Great to see you, 6:45. I mean, Peter, what can you say about this bloody woman, Meghan Markle?
Mike.
Sussex is a name I'm really involved with.
Mike, now, you have my absolute permission to slap me round the head here, right, if I need it.
Go on.
Okay? And I think I possibly do.
Okay.
I'm beginning to feel a little bit sorry for her. Right? Okay. Because it's all so pathetic.
It really
isn't
is. It's awful.
I mean, it truly is. And
you'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you? To be married to her or to be her.
Yeah. I mean, and the way she's dressed in that kitchen scene where she's slicing fruit, she looks like she's dressed to go out for the night, not slice fruit.
No.
I mean...
That's apparently how she dresses for breakfast.
Really?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, mate.
I know, it's shocking, absolutely shocking. Coming up, we're going to talk to you about why lone children migrants can now be sent back to France. 2 more dead in a terror attack in Germany. I mean, these are happening now every single week in Germany. And the 250 billion cost of UK crime. Mr. Blexley will have plenty to say about that. Coming up next on Talk.
When a lot of people, you've seen it in response to our question today online, on the phone, say, it's not our problem, it's not our war, we don't want to spend any British blood, we don't want to spend any money, we've got problems at home. What do you say to that?
Trump said Ukraine doesn't have any cards. I mean, first of all, if Zelensky wanted to surrender, he'd go to Moscow, not Washington. That's the first kind of point here. The second point being, Ukraine always has an option to kind of say enough is enough. But if we do that, you guys are on your own with Russia, and then it won't be fun.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 10 minutes to 7, believe it or not. We're almost finished with the first hour. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Sharon in Staffordshire says, morning, Mike and Peter. I'm so glad Trump has paused the aid to Ukraine. At last, the UK should do the same. Starmer needs to stop giving Ukraine British taxpayers' money. Well, he needs to stop promising to give them taxpayers' money for the rest of time. Damien from Liverpool says, I've received my bumper sticker. Thank you, guys. Got it there. Send it to us when you've stuck it on the car as well, because we'd like to see that. And make sure when you do take the picture, you don't include the registration plate, of course, you don't want to publish that. Let's get a voice note from James on Ukraine.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn. First on Ed Davey, he just needs to stick to bouncing on his bouncy castle or whatever it is that he was doing in, you know, chucking himself, well, just generally behaving like a fool. He's got no position to be standing up and lecturing anybody. And then Starmer, it's horrifying, really, that he's now swanning round like he's the most powerful man in the world. Oh dear, it's awful, really. And why does he think that he can get away with saying that we're going to have more money in our pockets because we're going to pay for a war that they can't win for even longer and pump even more money into it, and that's going to create more wealth for the British public? It's just nonsense, and we know it's nonsense as well. Everyone knows that that's just not true. I mean, we want peace, but, you know, I don't want to be paying too much more money for it. Keep up the good work, mate.
James, well said. It's absolutely right. I mean, Starmer seems to think that if he keeps saying something, people will just believe it. Like, we're putting money in your pocket, or, you know, we're all going to be better off, or, you know, we're making a difference, you know, we're stopping the boats. All of it is cobblers.
Yeah, but this is coming from a Labour Prime Minister, remember, OK?
Yeah.
And that party and all their kind of lunatic lefty followers say things like, diversity is our strength.
Right.
And they repeat it time and time and time.
And a woman can have a
penis. Time again. Yeah, and all these kind of things into thinking that, well, if you say it often enough, people will end up believing it. It will become the truth.
I don't know who's told them
if you say it often enough.
I don't know who's told them that. Speaking of how much money he's costing us, right? Piece in the Sun, which I thought was very interesting, and it's an analysis by the Policy Exchange, serious organisation. They've basically worked out that Britain's soft touch on crime is costing the economy up to £250 billion a year. Public sector crimes like fraud are put at 31 billion. Businesses put at 38 billion, crimes against individuals 63 billion. I mean, this is a very important point, I think, and in fact, in some ways, it's more important than a page 21 lead.
Ladies and gentlemen, please listen up while we say this.
Right.
This is so important.
Yeah.
You've taken the words right out of my mouth, mate. This should have been the front page of every newspaper today.
Yeah.
Every single newspaper.
Yeah.
How many years have I been going on about the appalling state of policing, how it repeatedly fails us, how the clowns that are in charge are fluffy and woke and university educated and out of touch with the common people, with the crimes that affect us every day, on the tubes, on the trains, on the roads, in the streets, all of it. And here we have today, from a credible organisation, doing as much work as they can to put a price on the cost of crime to Britain, and it is, I make no apologies for repeating this once again, £250 billion a year.
Right. And it's a fair, and this is good for people who think that Keir Starmer's doing a big deal by putting defence spending up to 2.5% of GDP. This, according to the Policy Exchange, is 10% of GDP, crime alone.
Yes.
Right?
And we know that.
Right.
Because the police retreated from the streets.
Yes.
A generation or so ago.
Yeah.
Thereby leaving the criminals to take over. If you don't believe me, look at the shoplifting stats. With over 1,000 members of staff abused or assaulted every day of the week.
Yes.
Look
and nobody doing anything about it.
Exactly. Look at the conviction rates for crimes. Things like sexual offences as low as 1% or some other lamentably pathetic low figure. Look at the people this morning, sadly, waking up to find that their car has disappeared from their driveway, or their van has had all the tools taken out of it. People that will come home from work tonight to find that their homes have been burgled. And I can pretty much guarantee that none of those people will ever see justice.
No.
They won't see people arrested, charged and convicted for those crimes.
And they'll never see the stuff that gets nicked ever again, right?
No. And the people today who, as they exit the tube station or are waiting for a bus and they get on their phone to check bus times or directions or what they're doing,
which is what I
or
did.
an email, and that is snatched from their hand. Right? This is happening day after day. Well, every minute of every hour.
Well,
of every day of every week.
1,000 phones a week being stolen in London alone.
Crime is rampant. Criminals rule the roost. Crime does pay, and our policing, in many regards, is pathetic because it's courageous frontline people being hamstrung, handcuffed, and prevented from doing proper policing as their masters send them round to visit 54-year-old grandmas who have written very mild criticism of a councillor on social media.
Exactly right. And today we've got another farming protest coming to London. Tractors will be driven into the centre of town. The police issued a warning on Sunday afternoon. If you're going to come to a protest in London as a farmer and you bring a tractor into London, which you didn't previously get permission for, we will arrest you. I mean, it's not a great look, is it? Arresting farmers who are basically demonstrating legally, which is their right to do, holding up traffic, yes, but legally protesting because they are being put out of business by this government.
The right to protest, of course, is central to our very national psyche. Of course people should protest, but they should protest lawfully. And I have to remain consistent on this, Mike. I've been hugely critical of Just Stop Oil. The police eventually got their act together. The courts eventually got their act together and started sending them to jail. OK? Some of the policing of the Palestinian protests has been lamentable, but it would appear that the Met are perhaps slowly getting to grips and making arrests on the day. They've adopted a policy of appeasement, which has got it to the dreadful state that it's in. And to the farmers who feed me, for whom I'm hugely, hugely grateful, and for whom I think are being completely and utterly shafted, please, ladies and gentlemen of the farming community, just protest lawfully. Don't give the Met Police an excuse to arrest you.
Yes, but why don't they get a bit more imaginative and say, like I've said about the Palestinians, and I'll be consistent here as well, you know, don't march through central London consistently every single weekend. Go to Hyde Park, have some kind of rally. Farmers could do the same. Drive your tractors in there, you know, have your rally and you know, send a small delegation perhaps down to Westminster. But the police should not be arresting farmers, in my view, for any number of reasons.
I think what we're both saying, Mike, is we would like consistent policing.
Yes, I think
that's
so.
what we want.
I think so. Meanwhile, over in America, Donald Trump, who's put some tariffs on China and Canada and Mexico, has basically said to the farmers in America, not only are we not going to arrest you, we want you to up your production levels, guys, because we want to buy more American goods, we want to buy more American food, we want more homegrown economic success, so you guys carry on and do it.
He vowed to put America first, and that is exactly what he's doing.
Now, this is a headline I never thought I'd ever read. Mouse-to-mouse resuscitation. There's a picture in the Times on page 16 of mice actually pulling aside the tongues of unconscious companion mice to clear airways in what is believed to be instinctive behaviour. So when one mouse has collapsed, another mouse is giving it mouse-to-mouse resuscitation. I kid you not. This is extraordinary, isn't it?
I'm going to be consistent.
Are you?
I hate those Mises to pieces.
I mean, we're nearly out of time, fortunately, so we've got a lot we can say about this. But these behaviours are reminiscent of how humans are taught to clear the airwaves of an unconscious individual during CPR, they say.
It's a revolting picture on page 10 of the Telegraph.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like mice at the best of times, but to watch one giving another one some form of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation is, quite frankly, ghastly. well, maybe they're smarter than we thought, and maybe they have a greater sense of community.
This is why you can't kill them off, because they can save each other's lives. I mean, that's what's going on here, I think. Anyway, listen, Peter, you're off for a while, aren't you? You're going to do a secret project. We can't mention it. We'll see Peter very soon. We will see you after the news into the next hour at 7 o'clock. This is Morning Glory.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in on far ball, slides it in. An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public is not being told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7. The sun is up. It's looking hazy again. It's looking sunny. A beautiful day yesterday. I mean, a bit chilly. 1 degree when I came out of the house this morning. But it is apparently going to be very, very mild and scorchio come the end of the week. We're talking 15, 16 degrees, they're telling us. So you better get your T-shirts out and your shorts out, because yesterday, I kid you not, I was in Borough Market and only the British can do this, right? There were people sitting outside a restaurant, with sunglasses on, bare arms. You'd think it was suddenly the middle of summer. It wasn't. Just the sun had come out, but it all looked very good. It all makes people happier, makes people cheerier, because there's so much depressing news around at the moment that you need something to cheer you up. So the weather, at least, is going to be okay. So let's talk about what is being said this morning. Theo Usherwood is going to be joining us shortly, political commentator. The coalition of the willing is going a bit wrong, unfortunately, for Keir Starmer. Basically, Donald Trump has said Europe have gone completely mad. What on earth are they doing? Why are they saying publicly that they can't work out a deal with Vladimir Putin and Ukraine without America? Why would they say such a thing? He says he can do a deal with Putin tomorrow. He can do a deal with Zelensky tomorrow, but Zelensky has to apologise. Zelensky has to show more respect. Zelensky has to understand that peace is something that everybody in the world wants, and he can't stop. He can't keep being this little dictator who tells everybody else what they should be doing. The front page of the Daily Mail. Trump, I won't put up with Zelensky for much longer. He's obviously ended Ukraine aid as well to put more pressure on the country, and so it's all kind of coming to a bit of a head. Let's get, of course, another perspective on what is also going on in the news today, which is on Meghan Markle. Her new Netflix series starts today. Here's what Brian's got to say about that.
Morning, Mike. Brian from Southend. Great show as normal. Not going to have me normal rant on Starmer today, but just to let you know, I'm looking forward to the new Netflix series of Mash with Mike in the mornings. When's it starting? Cheers, mate. Bye.
Yeah, I can mash anything you like. Potatoes, peaches, I don't know, Rice Krispies. I mean, anybody can give me a cooking show. Be more interesting than anything Meghan Markle does. Trump to Zelensky on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Your time is almost up. Yeah, absolutely right. But we're getting ever closer, I think, to a deal. And that's what Donald Trump wants, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We've got loads more to discuss when it comes to the migrant problem. Migrants are up 26% after more than 600 people arrived over the weekend. That's according to the Daily Mail. A Jamaican shooter is the subject of Migrant of the Day. We might as well start a whole a sequence here on Talk. Migrant of the Day, a Jamaican shooter, somebody who shot some people, has gone to jail some time ago, has now been released, can't be sent home to Jamaica because it might harm his job prospects when they find out he shot someone. Huh? What on earth is going on? Also, Channel 4 are now in the deep doo-doo after they used the same boy the BBC did to do a documentary about Hamas. And the 250 billion cost of UK crime. I mean, for heaven's sake. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Also, I'll tell you what I'm going to ask Theo Usherwood about is Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we used to say. You remember old John Bercow, who used to live very high on the hog and used to spend quite a lot of public money travelling around the world. Well, the lavish scale of Sir Lindsay Hoyle's expenses reveals that he blew more than £180,000 of taxpayers' money on flights in the last 2 years. He went to Jakarta in Singapore, Gibraltar, Canberra in Australia, Los Angeles, Dublin, Ottawa, Dublin twice actually, Montserrat, Tokyo, Delhi, Israel, the Cayman Islands, Brazil, Gibraltar again. You must like Gibraltar. Verona in Italy, St Helena and South Africa. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We'll talk to Theo Usherwood about this, I think, because even though obviously Ukraine's very important, Theo, I just want to get your view on this. I mean, what on earth is Sir Lindsay Hoyle doing, travelling around the world, staying in very expensive hotels and supposedly, I don't know, enriching himself?
Right, number one, your listeners are just going to look at this and think, why? What is the justification? Lindsay Hoyle is the Speaker of the House of Commons.
Yeah.
His main job in life is to stop MPs coming to blows, trying to beat each other up in the House of Commons, to maintain order on the floor of the Commons and to run basically the Houses of Parliament. That's it. It doesn't necessarily, I don't see why he needs to necessarily go abroad and spend tens of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money at a time when many of your viewers, many of your listeners are just struggling. They're struggling to get by. They don't have the luxury of going on 5-star holidays around the world, or even 5-star business trips around the world. Everybody is cutting back, Mike. And if there were to be a justification, you could maybe say, well, he needs to look at the best practice of parliaments in various countries around the world. I'm not sure, looking at this list, what the parliament, even if there is a parliament in Doha, can teach us about about how we should do
also
things.
The numbers of pounds that he spent are quite prodigious. I mean, I've been to Singapore, right? I don't know about you. He stayed in Singapore at the Shangri-La Hotel, and according to his records, the trip to Jakarta and Singapore cost not, a couple of thousand quid, £24,920. I mean, how do you rack up that kind of money on a foreign trip? Los Angeles, I took my entire family to Los Angeles to see my son. It didn't cost me £6,389 because I didn't stay at the Ritz-Carlton.
No, but there's no parliament. There's I don't know what the justification is for going to Los Angeles.
Right.
It's Hollywood. I mean,
Right.
you can go down Rodeo Drive. You can you can see all the A-listers.
to old Maxie's Chinese Theatre, whatever it's called, Man's Chinese
Exactly,
Theatre.
but what's he getting out of that trip of going to LA or going to Jakarta or going to Singapore that is going to make Parliament better? What is he getting out of that trip of going to these countries, and he's spending extortionate amounts of money that he's going to make the House of Commons a better, well-run place that's going to improve the mother of Parliament? I just don't see it, and I'm not sure. And if you can't make that case, then I'm not sure there's a justification in any circumstances for doing these kind of lavish trips. Even if let's say he stayed at some sort of motel on the outskirts of Los Angeles, what would be the point of going?
Yes.
I'm not understanding.
Exactly. And there'll be people listening to this, right, who have a similar kind of claim on their expenses when they're travelling for work, right? Subsistence is a word that is often used by accounts departments, where they go, basically, you're allowed to have a subsistence budget when you go out. You can't entertain people. You can't go and spend, £300 buying a bottle of Dom Perignon in a nightclub. You can have a glass of water, and you can have some food. One subsistence bill for Sir Lindsay Hoyle in Qatar cost £800. I mean, that is not really the definition of subsistence to me.
Is that the gold tomahawk steak?
It must be.
And the truffle fries.
I know. But it's hypocritical, and I'm glad we could talk about it, because I know we've got more important things to talk about as well. But, this is a guy who supposedly is the sort of moral compass of the House of Commons. He's supposed to keep the children in order. He's supposed to tell them how to behave, and they're supposed to look up to him. After this, I think they're only going to look down on him as just another snouts in a trough, public servant piece of what can only be described as something on the bottom of your shoe.
We've got to concentrate, and politicians have got to understand this. And this happened with Keir Starmer during Freebiegate last summer, with all of the multiple pairs of sunglasses.
Yeah.
That people at the moment, and I don't think it was ever the case, and I don't think it ever will be the case. People don't have huge amounts of money at the moment to spend on lavish holidays, lavish wardrobes, tickets to all types of concerts or shows in central London or elsewhere. They just don't. That's not how people live nowadays. They don't. The good times, the times of plenty, have gone. And I think many of your listeners will be watching this and hearing about this story and just thinking, I just want you to do the basics. I want you to run the council. I want you to I want a decent NHS.
Just do your job.
Just do your job.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to go around the world and pick up tips about how to run Parliament from Jakarta or Australia and Canberra in Australia. You don't even have to go and tell them how to do it and say, look at how great our Parliament here is in London. All we want you to do is to do your job and just be mindful that every time you go on these trips, or if you need to go on a trip just for one trip a year maybe, just be mindful about how you're spending money. Because if it was his own money, you can bet he wouldn't be spending it.
No, of course not. I mean, that's what I think sticks in most people's craws. Let's talk about the big story, of course, of the morning. Once again, Donald Trump, Vladimir Zelensky, Keir Starmer, the whole business of the European coalition of the willing, which appears to be sort of crumbling before our very eyes. Starmer had what I suppose everyone would agree was a reasonably good few days last week. I mean, I was very critical of his kind of slightly craven performance in the White House on Thursday, but he got a reasonable kind of reception from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and so it looked as though he was on the right side of history, as it were. However, since then, he's made, I think, a bit of a fool of himself, because, this business of inviting Zelensky into London, making a big show of hugging him, making fake cheers at Downing Street, promising him a meeting with the King, all of that, and then hoovering up all the European leaders for no apparent reason and issuing no statement worth a fag end. It's all now falling apart by the looks of it.
Yes, and the time's running out. Donald Trump's turning the screw. I mean, that make no mistake about it. He's, this announcement that he's withdrawing military aid, that's obviously going to allow Vladimir Putin to advance much more quickly. And I say this, Mike, I say this with no relish.
Yeah.
This is not something that we want to see at all. And I don't think any of your listeners or viewers would want to see what's about, what the potential of this turning really nasty, really quickly. And the problem is that, Keir Starmer, when, like you a little bit actually, when I heard his statement, when I heard him talk on Sunday morning about a coalition of the willing, not being dragged down, not being delayed by people arguing in Europe, I was slightly encouraged. But now we've got to Tuesday, and we've got these multiple options. And yesterday, the British government couldn't even agree on the French government about this 1 month pause in fighting, and what there are a number of options. Donald Trump hasn't got time for options. He wants this wrapped up, and he wants this wrapped up really quickly.
Yes.
And they need to find a way of getting President Zelensky back into the White House to make good with Donald Trump, sign up to this minerals deal, as was expected to happen last Friday, and to get things moving. But what was interesting yesterday in the House of Commons was Keir Starmer was asked by Nigel Farage actually, whether this minerals deal would be enough of a security guarantee, because you'd have American contractors operating in Ukraine. And Trump's argument is that Putin wouldn't dare attack American contractors because he would know the consequences would just not, would be, momentous. That actually Keir Starmer said, no, that wasn't good enough. Keir Starmer is pushing for British peacekeepers in Ukraine. He's pushing for an American backstop, in effect, America, assuring allied French, European forces, and it just doesn't seem. It seems like they're two different conversations.
Yes.
And there's nowhere that they're gonna meet. And I just wonder who's going to, is at some point, are we going to get to a point fairly quickly where actually the Europeans just have to realise that this backstop that they're after, this security guarantee that they're after from Donald Trump, is just not going to be forthcoming.
Well, I mean, I said this yesterday. Con Coughlin wrote a great piece in the Telegraph online on Sunday night, in which he said basically, this whole summit, this Euro summit in London, was a summit for wishful thinking, and it's all very nice and it's all very kind of hopeful, and it's probably even something that we might wish to see. But the fact remains, it's not going to happen, and they haven't got the power to make it happen. And even Keir Starmer knows that. So it's all a bit of, performative drama, really, nothing more than that. It's Keir Starmer trying to look important on the world stage when, quite frankly, he does not have a pot to pee in.
Yes, they need to. What I think many of us were expecting, having been summoned down to Lancaster House on Sunday afternoon, was that actually, having said there's a coalition of willing, Keir Starmer would stand there alongside President Zelensky, alongside Emmanuel Macron. Maybe Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau might turn up and say, stand there at a press conference and say, okay, well, we're going to put 1,000 or 20,000 troops into Ukraine on the 1st of April, and we're going to ensure you can draw the line here. You can give, obviously, Crimea would go, you presume that Crimea would go to Putin, and then part of eastern Ukraine would go to Putin as well. And we're there, Donald Trump, to keep the peace in the rest of Ukraine. And please, can we have your air support? But no, we didn't get that.
No.
We didn't get it.
But also, come on, 20,000 troops. I mean, the Russians have got something like 800,000 troops. What on earth are 20,000 troops going to do?
Sorry, I'm picking numbers out of the air. So if I'm saying 20,000 troops, put that on me, Mike. But they're not going to.
Well, yeah, but we can't do more than that, can we?
That's why I picked the figure. I don't think we've got an army of 70,000. We've got many of our troops taking Ozempic as a weight loss drug, so to avoid type 2 diabetes. And the heads of the RAF, Navy, and Air Force have been saying now for years that the armed forces are chronically underfunded, and that more money is needed to make sure that if we find ourselves in a situation like we find ourselves in now, that we can put troops on the front line to act as peacekeepers. But of course, the terrible fight, the predicament we find ourselves in now is that many of our, we just don't have the fighting force, and we're in a similar situation to many other parts of Europe as well. But ultimately, there has been no agreement. The French and the British, having said that they want to lead this, have not come to a firm agreement about what they want to do. And that would be fine. We could have another few weeks, months of talking. The problem is that we've got Donald Trump now breathing down our necks saying, no, I want this sorted ASAP. I want to find a resolution. And if we're under time pressure and we can't get our acts together, there's only one winner from that, and that's Vladimir Putin. Yes. And I don't. And that this is not something I say by way of any means of excuse or
it's just reality.
A terrible state of affairs.
No, it's reality, which you recognise, which I recognise, which Keir Starmer's trying to divert us from, as if he's got the answer. But he hasn't. And I mean, even the Financial Times today gives a clue as to how difficult this is all becoming, in as much as they say, or they certainly infer, it would seem to me, that this money that we're supposedly using that's been seized from Russian assets is not actually money that we've even got. Because according to the FT, Europe's biggest powers are swinging behind efforts to seize more than 200 billion euros of frozen Russian assets, which tells me they haven't done it yet. So we haven't even got this money. You know, Rachel Reeves is busy signing cheques and they're all clapping her and waving away the, 2.26 billion pounds worth of the latest aid to Ukraine. And it's not money that we've actually got from these so-called frozen assets because it hasn't been collected yet.
Yeah, and that's always a danger, and it's a good spot, Mike. Of spending money before you've got it, because it's one thing having the money in the Treasury purse. It's another thing, of course, actually, saying when you don't have it, you've got to go and collect it, and all the while, of course, and it's just worth mentioning, all the while, Vice President Vance, JD Vance was on the television making the case, of course, that actually Europe is divided, that what European leaders say privately about President Zelensky is very different to what they say in public. And it was interesting that on Sunday, Peter Mandelson made those comments, didn't he, when he said actually President Zelensky should, go and be the first to sign a peace deal. Right. And then you had Luke Pollard, the junior defence minister, come out in the first thing yesterday morning and say that's not the government's position. But when Keir Starmer was asked about it on the floor of the House of Commons yesterday by Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, to repeat the comments that Luke Pollard, his junior defence minister, had made, Keir Starmer wouldn't do it. Indeed, the Prime Minister's spokesman was asked yesterday morning and yesterday afternoon to repeat the exact same phrasing that Luke Pollard had used, that what Lord Mandelson had said was not, it wasn't the government's position. And again, he wouldn't say it. So there's an issue where, talking to what JD Vance has been saying in terms of, saying privately one thing and one thing in public. Actually, if you look at what Lord Mandelson said in public, we have a situation where the government's trying to face both ways, in effect giving Lord Mandelson a pass. OK, you'll get a ticking off from a junior minister. You shouldn't have said that. But will the Prime Minister come in and rebuke will Keir Starmer come in and rebuke Lord Mandelson? No. Of
course he won't. And you smell the scent of Mandelson definitely all over that European summit, because he when he was advising Tony Blair, he would say, make yourself look big, make yourself look strong, make yourself look like a peacemaker, make yourself look like the guy who's in charge. And that's what Starmer's trying to do. Trouble for Starmer is he's not Tony Blair, and he's got it wrong again.
Yeah, we can't. This is critical. We can't afford to. We've got to get this. The best thing we could do, the best news we could hear. But I've just got no faith, and I don't think any of us have any particular faith, is that Europe in the next 24, 48 hours can come up with a real solid proposal that at least Britain, France, and perhaps a couple of other nations are agreed to take to Donald Trump and show him that we mean business. That's what he wants. That's what he wants to hear. That's why Keir Starmer last week increased defence spending, rushed it forward to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Right. Because what he wants is European nations to take action and to actually protect their own backyard, and to do it on European taxpayers, on money raised by the European taxpayers, not on US taxpayers. Now, I don't particularly, that's not a worldview that I grew up in. I always thought that America was being there, was going to be there. But clearly that's not the case anymore. Everything has changed within the last 6 weeks. And we had the announcement from Donald Trump last night, and we could get to 5 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll have another announcement from Donald Trump that will turn the world on its head. And will we get, in the 24 hours that comes after that, during the course of Wednesday, will we get another deal?
Does it not prove as well that the craven behaviour that we saw from Keir Starmer, that we're just seeing now, touching Donald Trump on the shoulder, being all chummy with him after previously calling him a man that he wouldn't want to invite round for dinner to his house, was absolutely the most hypocritical move of all time, and it didn't even work, because Trump is now already slagging off Britain and the rest of Europe for doing this particular summit and coming out with some of the stuff they came out with. But listen, Theo, I've got to run. Thank you very much indeed, because we're out of time. We've got so much to do today. Appreciate it. Theo Usherwood, their political commentator, agreeing with me that Starmer has painted himself into another corner because he's so useless. That's the problem with him. He wasn't any good at talking about pensions. He wasn't any good about talking about the economy. He wasn't any good about talking about immigration. Now he isn't any good about talking about Ukraine and peace. Why is anybody not surprised? Let's get a voice note from Andy on Meghan.
Morning, Mike. I'm loving the sound of your mashed potato last night. That sounds delicious. That's exactly how I do it too. A little tip, Mike. Chuck an egg yolk in there as well. Not the white, obviously, just an egg yolk where you're mixing it all together, and it really enriches it and makes it even nicer. Great show, Mike.
Tremendous, absolutely tremendous. Already we've generated more interest in my mashed potato than Meghan could do in her rainbow of fruits for your children on a Saturday morning. I mean, goodness gracious me. Coming up, we're going to speak to Ollie Field, who's a farmer, believe it or not. Outstanding in his field, some might say, because he is coming to London to demonstrate with other farmers and hoping not to be arrested by the Metropolitan Police. Today, this is Talk.
It's now emerged that the BBC's most senior news boss actually watched this documentary 3 weeks before it got put out. 400 grand this cost. 400 grand.
This woman's job is untenable. She's got to go, right? She is paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a year in order to run of our money in order to run a news organisation. Instead, not just in this film, but particularly in this film, she has allowed the BBC to be used as a propaganda unit of a terrorist organisation.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 27 minutes past 7, actually nearly 28 minutes past 7. I don't know where the time's going, really. We're already an hour and a half into the show. The sun is up. It's looking pretty nice out there. It was beautiful yesterday here in London, but very chilly, but sunny. And sunny is what we want, because it seems like it is actually spring-like. Why can't these senior foreign prime ministers just walk into number 10 instead of parading around like film stars and get on with the job, says Alan in Merseyside. And Rob says the coalition of the willing is formed from two unpopular leaders who are grandstanding to increase their popularity. None of the other countries at the summit committed to anything. I find it very frustrating that so many British people are being sucked into their subterfuge and to despise Donald Trump, when without Trump the war in Ukraine won't end. Let's get a voice note from Sue on Farmers.
Hi Mike, Sue from Farnham here. Again, two-tier policing. How come they don't stop those stupid, pathetic people blocking the road? Oil, what about oil? Ask them what their clothes are made of. Yet they have a go at farmers bringing tractors into the city. So what? We are all allowed to demonstrate. Stop the oil protesters blocking the roads.
Yes, absolutely, Sue. I take your point. I feel your pain. I understand your anguish. It's absolutely right. Let's talk to a farmer. Ollie Field is based in Sussex. He's coming to the demo today in London. Metropolitan Police has issued a statement, or issued a warning, shall we say, on Sunday afternoon, saying if you come to London in a tractor without previously clearing that with the Metropolitan Police as a specifically allowed person to come in with a vehicle, you will be arrested. Ollie, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. I don't know, you're obviously...
Great show, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much
indeed. By the way, and we listen to it avidly in the farm. We've always got it on in the tractor.
Well, I'm very...
And you're the only show... Can I just point out, the only show that actually makes sense.
Yeah, well, we do try to make sense. An awful lot of the people that listen to us make an awful lot of sense as well. So I'm delighted that you're part of it. I must send you a bumper sticker to stick on the back of your tractor, so that when you do drive it around, people can know that you're part of the whole family of common sense. I don't know whether you are coming to the rally today. Are you bringing your vehicle? Are you bringing a tractor?
No, I'm not bringing a tractor. We organised the last one. With a group of us from Say British Farming. We've done the mass tractor rally. I think it was great success. We've done two of them, actually. Today, there will be some machinery there, exactly that. But we've got a couple of, like a combine harvester, forage harvester, and a couple of bits that the chap, Ollie Harrison, who's organised it, has gone and cleared with the Met Police, just to emphasise the sheer cost and scale of this machinery that we need to provide food for the country.
Right. I mean, it is ridiculous, though, is it not, that we've come to a point where the Metropolitan Police have to say we're going to arrest people who come in tractors. I mean, they don't need to do that. Surely they could be a little bit more friendly, a little bit more welcoming. It's not as if... I mean, we're looking at the last one there, where there was an awful lot of tractors in Whitehall, but it wasn't exactly, like you were tearing up the place or, spraying what they spray in France over the public buildings.
No, that's it, Mike. I mean, we had a lot of support from the police last time. When they saw the sheer scale of it, it's quite emotional. It's quite moving, actually, to see it all. And the police were fantastic support. They loved it. It brings to question government or dictatorship. I mean, I don't know at the moment what the hell's going on, but it definitely feels like the latter.
Yeah,
I have to say.
Well, you must feel slightly aggrieved when you see that the government can find £18 billion and possibly more than that to give away to the Chagos Islands, and they can find a couple of billion to throw at Ukraine without even thinking about it, and yet they seem to think that taking £500 million off you guys is going to save the planet.
Yeah, Mike, absolutely right. I mean, it's red raw in the farm world at the moment. There's two things, really. I think we've got the food security issue.
Yes.
That the government has no plan for. And we're just basically announcing that we have got to be prepared for war. Well, where's the government plan for that?
Yeah, right.
Well, where's the food going to come from,
Well, exactly
and
right.
secondly, is the tax. Food is vital, isn't it? Everyone eats.
Well, I mean, here's the difference between us and the United States, right? Today, or late last night, Donald Trump said this to the great farmers of the United States: get ready to start making a lot of agricultural product to be sold inside of the United States because tariffs are going to go on external products on April the 2nd. So he's actually encouraging farmers to grow more, to sell more. We, on the other hand, are telling farmers, shut down your farm, we're going to buy food from somewhere else.
Well, Mike, this is what I fear they want. They want a kind of American trade deal where we will be sort of subjected to buying this sort of cheap, mass-produced food from the United States. I do feel that. And pay massive tariffs for it. Who knows what the future holds? I mean, it changes every hour at the moment with this government. But I think that's the general plan. It's to sort of rewild the UK and then and rely on sort of food from overseas. I mean, when we can do it here. Look at these guys in London. You know, over the last few weeks, look at what we're up to, and I think I'm really proud of my industry, and I think we're really good at it.
Well, you are, and I mean, one of the great things about this country is that we do have a great variety of food. We do have a wonderful, you know, homegrown scenario going on. Why would you want to change it? I just don't understand it. And again, it comes down to, I think, ideology. It comes down to Rachel Reeves hates farmers. You know, Steve Reed hates farmers. Keir Starmer doesn't understand the countryside. You know, none of them do. They're all these kind of metropolitan liberal elite types who just don't. I mean, they get a nosebleed if they go outside the M25.
Oh my God, that's a good one like that. Yeah, I think you're right. And you know, we've invited MPs to farms. To try and show them hands-on what and the distance between the rural life and the urban life is bigger than ever. Despite Clarkson's Farm and Country File and all the things we watch on telly, and there has been a general increase in interest in agriculture, but there's still that massive divide. We are insignificant. Yet Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer will sit down every evening, I presume, and have food around the table, and we have an abundance of it in the supermarkets. Every time we go, there's shelves full of it. You know, what if there isn't?
Yeah, right. I know, I haven't thought about it. But when you see what they've done with energy, and they've sort of outsourced that on the basis that it's greener to buy in gas from overseas than it is to make your own, and it's greener to somehow ship wood from Canada before you actually burn your own. I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane.
Mike, I'm pleased you brought that up. Drax Power Station is absolutely absurd on so many levels. You know, and then we're going to import food from Australia, potentially. We're going to a bit of an event on Friday, actually, in London, to oppose the Australian meat trade deal. Again, you know, we're having this influx of imported food when we produce enough here as it is. You know, we know we're not self-sufficient, but we are. I don't know what the figures are. I don't even know how they work it out. I think they say we're 60 to 70% efficient in the UK on certain aspects of our food production system. But to keep importing this stuff is not the answer. Environmentally, for one.
Exactly right.
It's just, you know, the frustrations there.
I know. I can see it, and it's really, really frustrating for a lot of people as well who support you, myself included. But Ollie, listen, good luck today. Make as much noise as you can, and let's see what we can do to turn these absolute wallies around. Ollie Field, farmer based in Sussex, who's coming to the demo today. Let's just remind ourselves of how noisy the farmers can be. Here's a clip from Ian Collins.
William, good to have you with us. I know it's busy down there. You've moved to a place where you can hear us and we can hear you. Just give us a sense of the atmosphere and what's happening there today.
The solution to this, we can answer, and we have asked for a meeting with the Chancellor. All the organisations involved today have requested a meeting with Chancellor Reeves. And if she's willing to meet us and listen...
Listen, we're gonna try and get
them well and good, but if not, then we have other plans going.
Listen, William, we are gonna try and get you, because in the spirit of protest, obviously there's a lot of animated farmers in trucks and tractors.
I mean, apparently that's now an arrestable offence to play the horn, if you like, on a tractor. I mean, what's the problem with the police? Why do they want to start arresting farmers, for heaven's sake? You know, they make the food that you're eating. You know, the vegan sausage roll, even, that you're eating in the Metropolitan Police. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? This from David Sussex. Mike, why are the farmers protest during the week? If it was the weekend, my friends and I would join them. We have to work during the week. Well, Dave, I mean, I'm sorry about that, but, I mean, people don't work... I mean, I was out and about yesterday in London, Monday, and it was deserted. There was nobody around. Why? Oh, because they don't work on Monday. You can work from home. I mean, I don't know what to say, Dave. I mean, some people would say it's more difficult to get a demo going on the weekend. That's when all the Palestinian lot seem to do their protest. Here's one from David. He says, Mike, Starmer is no Trump and definitely not Churchill reincarnated. The guy's a pleb. Great show. Thanks for the bumper sticker. David, send me the picture. We need to see them. They're all coming in. We're creating a bumper sticker kind of map, an interactive map, which will show us where everybody is who's got one, because we're about to send out a load more. We're just waiting for the new bumper sticker arrivals to come in. There's one there, the Home of Common Sense. You can join the Home of Common Sense and be part of Morning Glory as well. There's another one. You don't have to stick it on your car. You can stick it anywhere you like, basically. Some people are asking them for their one for a mobility scooter. You can put one on your motorbike. You put it on your bike, your push bike. This is great. Absolutely brilliant. It is a revolution. The Common Sense revolution. You can join it. And coming up later on, we've got a bit of a surprise for you on this front as well. 0344 499 1000. Also, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, right? The man who says exactly what you can and cannot do inside of the House of Commons.
Order! Order! I will not tolerate such behaviour.
He's been found guilty of spending £180,000 of taxpayers' money travelling around the world on all sorts of jollies. Jakarta, Singapore, Gibraltar, Dublin, Los Angeles, you name it, Doha. He's been there and spent a bucket load of money. Subsistence in Doha, 800 quid. Yeah, pull the other one, Sir Lindsay. It's got bells on it. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here from 10 until 1. I'm delighted to say Kira Rudik is here. Kira, Ukrainian ambassador, I suppose I'm going to call you, because you come into this show quite a lot. You represent the Voice Party, which doesn't always see eye to eye with Vladimir Zelensky, but you're obviously now, we're all at this crossroads. I mean, Keir Starmer calls it the crossroads of history. And, you know, what are you making of what's going on at the moment?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Not at all.
So good to be here. It is indeed crossroads, and at the crossroads, it's important to be at the right side of the history, right?
Yeah.
And so this is what we are all trying to do.
And to make the right turn as well, I suppose.
Yep. To push all together so the turn would be right. So, yeah, I don't think that there is anyone happy about what happened in the White House.
Yeah.
Both us and Americans. And it's a very tough situation where we would hope that the European leaders gather all together and say, here is exactly how we can support you.
Yeah.
So this is your wiggle room.
Yeah.
With the American administration.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we didn't hear that just yet.
No.
We just hope
Right.
that they will come together and say, well, here is 700 billion that Europe is going to spend on its security and defense over the next 10 years, for example. And this is what we are going to produce. This is where we can support Ukraine. This is where you are on your own. And it would be much more clear for us than what's at stake with the United States. We did not hear that now.
No.
And I'm just questioning what's stopping it? Who is, can somebody get out and say who is hesitant? Who doesn't understand the threat?
Right.
Because
I think it's also partly that the European leaders don't really have much that they can say, because I mean Keir Starmer says we will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, and people like me say, well, how long is that? Because there are people, I think legitimately in Europe and in this country certainly, who say we can't just have a never-ending supply of money. You can't have a never-ending supply of money without a solution. If you're going to take Russia on, take them on. They should have done it before. They didn't do it before. Now maybe it's too late to do it because Russia don't want to give up any of the land that they've acquired, and so we are where we are. So I mean, is there any situation whereby you, for example, could say, in Ukraine, you don't all necessarily stand with Zelensky, who says that we can't give up any land, or we can't negotiate with the Russians. He doesn't believe in diplomacy. If you don't believe in diplomacy, you're never going to solve it.
Well, Mike, is this true that I'm in opposition to President Zelensky and was before the full-scale invasion? However, there are certain things where we stand together.
Sure.
And one of those things is, it's not like our wish or our position not to negotiate with Russia, is that we have already seen that in the past and it did not work.
Right.
This is what President was trying to explain to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. He was saying different ways, but how this time will be different from the previous times. And the previous times were in 2014, where we had ceasefire.
Yeah.
It did not work for a day.
Right.
Then in 2022, there were first attempts of talking, and it didn't work well. So how do we make sure that Russia would not attack us again?
Right.
No clear understanding. And when President Trump said, well, I trust Putin and Putin is afraid of me, these are your security guarantees. Excuse me?
Yeah.
As a country, we do not accept this as security guarantees.
Sure. No, I get that. But is it possible that in 2014 particularly there was a different president, there was a different sort of mindset perhaps in the world, and Trump, for all of his faults that people may criticise him for, does seem to be able to get some things done which he says he can get done. If he can bring Putin to the table and somehow convince him that this is going to be different from 2014 and there's going to be reasons why he can't move, for example, the minerals deal, for example, which might guarantee some kind of commercial interest for America. Is that not something that's worth considering?
So there are two questions, again, and you're bringing a very good point. So first is, okay, so what is the baseline? What are the security guarantees? How do we put them onto the paper or onto some agreements? Is it something that Putin is afraid of Trump? Then what happens when Trump is gone?
Yeah.
Then what happens if Putin breaks his part of the deal? Then what Trump would do? And that should come as a background, right, for any other negotiations.
Right.
And the issue is we haven't heard it just yet. And then about the minerals deal. So President Trump says that Putin would not attack if there is an American business on the ground. Before politics, I was on the board of American Chamber of Commerce. There is already a huge presence of American business on the ground in Ukraine.
Right.
And I remember when the full-scale invasion started, how the United States were evacuating their embassy. So that doesn't add up for me, why it didn't work before and will work right now. And then about the minerals deal. We are happy to sign it, right? We support President Zelensky if that's what it needs to be done to, bring the U.S. to the table. Let's sign a deal. Then it will still go to Ukrainian parliament and we'll have to look it up. But why is it that the victim of aggression has to give something up? And why, if Donald Trump is really out for the money, what's the story with the 300 billion of Russian money that are right now in Belgium, Euroclear?
Yeah.
If he wants to receive money fast, that's better deal to take those money from that are frozen Russian assets rather than investing in Ukrainian minerals, because that's like a really far-fetched, idea, probably for 10 years, maybe 15.
And it will be a long time before the money comes back.
Absolutely. Like the first time you will get profits, I think, will be decades.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at the Financial Times this morning, and they say, this whole business of seized Russian assets is much more complicated than it sounds.
Of course.
Because, Starmer came out on Sunday and said, we're signing a cheque, 2.6 billion. We've got it from seized Russian assets. It turns out they haven't, because the money hasn't been released yet.
Yep.
And the G7 countries are now still thinking about releasing it, but they haven't yet. France and Germany don't want to release it. They're having conversations about it. It makes sense to me. If you've got that money, by all means use it. And buy arms and give them to Ukraine to beat Russia.
Compensate.
But the trouble is, nobody now, I think, militarily is very sure that could still happen. That Russia can be beaten. Do you think they can be?
Well, I have some facts to prove that.
Yeah.
Our operation in Kursk region, Mike. So Russia is still unable to throw us from there.
Right.
So it shows you that they are not as strong militarily as they have been telling us. What they are effective at is using their missiles that they still somehow produce under the sanctions in attacking our cities, using North Korean troops to attack us on the front line as well, but they cannot defend even their own territory that well.
But they hold about 20% now, don't they, of Ukraine?
Yep, they do.
So they got that,
yes.
And that's where they've stuck, if you like. They're not trying to advance on that.
Yep, but we have taken some of their Kursk region, and if we had all the promises that were made beforehand on the weapons and supplies, if they all have become real weapons, we will be in a different situation.
Right. Would anybody in Ukraine accept... I was listening to an interview on Times Radio the other day with somebody from Ukraine who said that there's a large or a growing number of people, maybe 30% of people now, who think that it might have to be the case that some land is given up. What's your view of that?
Again, we are talking about what Ukraine is ready to give up, but we should be talking first about what are the security guarantees, and then we can wait.
So the conversation has begun at least.
Right?
Yeah,
but right now we are talking just virtually. Would you be ready to give something up? And then I will ask you, well, okay, we will give this up, and then what?
Yeah.
Then Russia will just use it as a next step to attack us again. And it's not me telling you. We have facts supporting it from the past.
Right.
So coming back to this question that nobody likes us to ask is, how do we make sure that Russia is stopped and cannot attack us again?
Yeah.
Right now, in 4 years, when President Trump is gone, in 10 years, in 15 years. Don't have an answer just yet. Didn't hear from anyone that would have a comprehensive plan.
So that's what you need then?
Yep, that's what we need. And while nobody has a proper plan, we have a plan, Mike. Our plan is to fight, and this is what we're doing.
Okay. But of course, the people in the supplying of the fight, if you like, with weapons and with money, are saying at the moment, anyway, it can't go on forever.
That's true. We are.
And you don't want it to go on forever either.
Yeah, we are the nation that is saying we want to end the war. Most of all of us, right? But the question is again, like if we stop, it's not. If we stop fighting, Russia will take over Ukraine.
Yeah.
If Russia stops fighting, there will be no war.
Yeah. Totally. And Putin at the table with Zelensky, do you see it?
At this table, Zelensky needs to have European leaders and hopefully somebody from the United States.
Yeah.
Then it perhaps would be possible.
Yeah. Okay. We wish you luck. Good to see you, Kira.
Thank you, Mike.
Again, Kira Rudik there from the Ukrainian Parliament. It's a complicated issue. We talk about it here all day. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about it for some time. But there needs to be a solution, does there not? 7:51.
Yeah, and he's just totally playing to his domestic audience.
Yeah.
I think that, and we saw this a bit this afternoon in the House of Commons, there seems to be across the political aisle in Britain a love for Ukraine and wanting to stand behind President Zelensky. It's not exactly the same in America, and a lot of the American public who have spent, most of their lives watching their country get sucked into foreign wars and paying for the privilege, are getting a bit sick of it now. And so when Trump talks about not wanting to bankroll
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's Mike Graham here, 5 minutes to 8. Already, we've done 2 hours. Unbelievable stuff. Incredible things to tell you about. We've got the farmers' protest coming into town today. Here's my prediction. If the Metropolitan Police arrest one farmer, they will have failed miserably in running the policing of this city of ours, because farmers do not deserve to be arrested, no matter what they're doing, right? And I say that with absolute alacrity. No doubt there'll be some bozo that will say, oh, what if they get punchy and start hitting police? Well, they're not going to do that. They're coming here to make a genuine protest about their way of life that they wish to see preserved rather than extinguished by this ridiculous government that doesn't seem to know anything at all. We're going to go over to Germany now, though, because once again, I'm sorry to say, last night, we all saw it yesterday afternoon, another one of those terrible sinking feelings when you see the news breaking. This is from the German city of Mannheim. A car drives into a crowd in the centre of the city, killing 2 people, injuring dozens, of course, again. Rob Hyde is here with us. He's a journalist based in Germany. Rob, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I mean, it's really becoming now a weekly, possibly a bi-weekly occurrence, this. What can you tell us about this particular one?
Well, what you said is right. I mean, of course, it's only 2.5 weeks since Munich, and there we had another vehicle ploughing into a crowd and killing people, and that was just before Magdeburg, where we had the same. So what happened yesterday was around 12:15. We had an individual, a German man, 40 years old, who'd been living alone, and he had a history of psychological problems, and who also had a history of violence. He was being convicted for assault 10 years ago. He was later caught drunk driving, but he was still released, and the authorities didn't really monitor him. And he ploughed his vehicle into a crowd. He killed 2 people, a man and a woman, and these were people who were out celebrating the carnival period, and police descended on the city. They had their submachine guns. There were helicopters swooping around, and the city was on a state of high alert, and a lot of panicked people.
I mean, it must be one of those terrible scenarios. I mean, I remember living in London during the 1970s when the IRA were on a full kind of bombing campaign, and you became kind of inured to it in a way, but you were always aware. You were always kind of careful about walking around. You were always careful about getting on the tube. I mean, is that how people feel now?
I think it is, because Germany didn't have that, obviously, with the IRA. I mean, there was a stage, but this is many years ago, when there was some far-left terror group, and there was a wave of sort of police raids and things, but apart from that, it hasn't had this, and all of a sudden it's got this, and as you said, on a very weekly basis, and it's really having an effect. So lots of carnivals and festivals are being cancelled, particularly because the local authorities can't afford the increased security measures. So we're talking barriers, bollards, more CCTV, which isn't very widely spread in Germany, often due to privacy laws, and stricter vehicle access, and concepts like geofencing technology and this type of thing are really very new for Germany, which is arguably kind of digitally backward on many levels.
Yeah, and that, of course, is a massive worry. Listen, Rob, we haven't got a lot of time today, so thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there and your comments. Rob Hyde, a journalist based in Germany. Yet another terrible incident which has caused the death of ordinary, innocent individuals who didn't know when they walked out the door that particular morning that they were not actually going to survive the day. Absolutely shocking stuff. Lots and lots of things to be told about. This one from David, who says, Mike, Starmer is no Trump, definitely not Churchill reincarnated. The guy is a pleb. I think we might have done that one already. And this one from Sharon, who says, why the hell does Hoyle need to go on foreign trips paid for by taxpayers? Is this a bloody joke? That's Sharon from Staffordshire. And one from Darryl, Mike, definitely have a new section of what ridiculous excuse a migrant has to stay. May I suggest the title, The Daily Migrant? Keep them coming. I'd cry if they weren't so hilarious. Yeah, psychopaths, chicken nuggets. I mean, for heaven's sake, what next? This is Talk.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspects in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public is not being told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. The sun is up. The day is upon us. It's Tuesday, of course, the 4th of March. We are marching our way through, if you like, the late idea of winter, moving into spring. It's going to be very, very much warmer towards the end of the week, 15, 16 degrees. So, you know, get your yah-yahs out, whatever they used to say back in the days of the Rolling Stones in their heyday. We've got much to do this morning. We're going to be talking to Ryan Sabey, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. Yesterday, he was pictured in the paper with a Volodymyr Volodymyr Zelensky. He had a meeting with him. Trump has issued overnight a statement saying that basically the US is going to pause military aid to Ukraine for the moment until, according to the White House, Donald Trump sees some kind of movement from Zelensky to come to the table to talk about peace rather than to come to the table to talk about guarantees. Of course, President Trump has also accused European leaders of weakness for their reliance on America. He's been very critical of Keir Starmer and that European summit that he held on Sunday. So when he asked everybody whether they would become part of the coalition of the willing, Keir Starmer basically dropped yet another ball, I suppose you might say, for want of a better word, in front of Donald Trump, the president, because he himself admitted that there can be no peace in Ukraine without the involvement of the United States of America and indeed Donald Trump himself. We've got sending British troops to Ukraine without the US helping us would be folly, says Starmer, after saying that he wanted to put UK troops on the ground. I mean, absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Keir Starmer doesn't know what he's doing, neither do the rest of the European leaders. The only way this is going to be worked out is for Donald Trump to get Zelensky and Putin around the table. We just heard from Kira Rudik, they're a Ukrainian MP, of course, the leader of the Voice Party. She says, we don't agree with Zelensky on everything, but we are willing to sit down and negotiate. Which seems to be a different position than the one Zelensky is currently putting out there. But she also said we need some guarantees. Now, there's any number of ways you can do that. Also, coming up on the show, we're going to talk about Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, Mr. Speaker, who basically has been found guilty, I would say, of using public money to take jollies around the world. 180,000...
I will not tolerate such behaviour.
Quite right too, Sir Lindsay. I mean, you should give yourself a strong talking to about spending £180,000 worth of taxpayers' money going to places like Doha, going to places like Dublin several times, Gibraltar several times, Singapore, all sorts of parts of the world, Jakarta as well in Indonesia. Incredible. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't need to travel to explain what he does for a living. Nobody's interested. Britain's also paying £180,000 an hour for shutting down wind farms because they don't work. Channel 4 also used the same Hamas sun that the BBC did. There's all sorts of stories. And the cost of UK crime has now reached £250 billion a year. That's 10% of GDP. For heaven's sake, this is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, and by the way, in case you haven't heard, Meghan has got a new documentary series out starting tonight on Netflix. It's called With Love from Meghan. And in there you can see her rearranging pieces of fruit in a rainbow shape so that it looks as though if you're a busy parent, you can give it to your children. It's Pancake Tuesday, by the way, if anybody hasn't noticed. Nobody's brought me any pancakes. You know, in this radio station, we used to do things like Pancake Tuesday. We used to get people in making pancakes. We don't do it anymore because we're much more serious now, of course. Very much more serious. We don't do that sort of frivolous rubbish. But if anybody's got any pancakes, by all means, I'm not really a big fan of them, to be honest. Maybe get Meghan's recipe for them, for heaven's sake. Yeah, use some eggs and join somebody, marry somebody from the royal family and just get a butler to do it. That's what I would suggest. Let's talk to Ryan Sabey, Deputy Police Commissioner at The Sun. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
We've reached a bit of an impasse, it would seem. You know, Keir Starmer thought he was doing the right thing by buttering up President Trump on Thursday in the White House. He came back to the UK, decided that, you know, after what happened on Friday, he should invite Zelensky in and make a big show of being mates with him. Then had the European summit. It now looks as if that's all kind of crumbled around him, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, we see overnight that Donald Trump has effectively postponed the military aid to Ukraine. I think this causes big problems across the political spectrum, whether it's America, whether it's Europe, and the only person celebrating that will be Vladimir Putin. Yeah. And I think one thing that will become absolutely critical this week is a meeting of European leaders on Thursday, and what role that Sir Keir Starmer actually plays on this. I think he will have to come sort of front and centre of this. He's playing this leading role with France. There's been lots of talk, there's been lots of selfies, there's been lots of pats on the back, but it now seems like European leaders have to come to the fore, and this coalition of the willing has to actually do some. There has to be some action, and the talking has to stop.
Well, I mean, that's what I just heard from Kira Rudik, who's a Ukrainian MP who you might know. She leads the Voice Party. You know, it's all very well for Keir Starmer to say he stands with Ukraine for as long as it takes. But it doesn't mean anything. You know, I said this on Monday. You know, you can't just issue these platitudes and make it look as if you're a mixture of something between, you know, Napoleon Bonaparte and Winston Churchill. You know, it's not going to wash. You can't just, you know, shake hands with loads of people and hug loads of people and put out videos with, you know, dramatic music behind them and make out that you've somehow saved the situation. He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I think you're going to see a lot of diplomacy over the next 72 hours. It was Keir Starmer, don't forget, when it was all kicking off in the White House last Friday. He wasn't taking to Twitter. He was actually getting on the phone he phoned President Trump. He then spoke to President Zelensky. And it was Downing Street who actually tried to get Zelensky back into the White House, even after he had been taken away in his car. So Downing Street are doing as much as they can. They see themselves as being front and centre of all these negotiations. I know we talk about the bridge between all the different sides, but it really feels like it's Britain's role, that sort of natural link between the European Union, Ukraine and America, where it seems like it's just fallen on us to actually to fill that void. And it seems like we will be this linchpin on whether it's trying to sort out the peace deal, trying to get the minerals deal sort of sorted, or actually try and get Zelensky back into the room in the White House.
Yeah, I mean, but Starmer's kind of appointed himself as this figure who's the bridge. He said he wanted to do that. I was a suspect of what he could actually achieve. And the problem is he doesn't, you know, as Trump would say, he doesn't really have any cards left. He doesn't have any cards in the game, does he? I mean, because he's kind of demeaned the opportunity for Trump to go and visit King Charles, because he sort of insulted him by giving that opportunity to Zelensky, which he did rather rashly, I think, at the weekend. You know, it was a clear snub to Donald Trump. And you know, knowing what we know about Donald Trump, you might not like him, but he is the President of the United States of America. He's a very powerful man, and without him, there is no peace in Ukraine. And I think Starmer really hasn't really... I'm just not sure where he's going with all this.
Yeah, I think Sir Keir Starmer has realised that, you know, we're one of the biggest economies in Europe. We're one of the, stepped up our defence spending to 2.5% that will kick it in a couple of years. One of the sort of biggest military powers in Europe, and I think it has just fallen upon us and France to lead the way. Other European countries, we've been asking them to step up, and I feel that Sir Keir Starmer, we might even see him back in the White House before too long to actually to get things moving. And you wonder what sort of role Lord Mandelson will play, again being that linchpin between the British government and the White House as our new ambassador there. But yeah, it's difficult. But I think Sir Keir Starmer, as we saw him in the House of Commons yesterday, as he said, it's a test of our times, and I know it's a cliche, but we really are at that crossroads, and it needs leaders to step up, and it feels like Sir Keir and Emmanuel Macron are the only ones who can, at this stage, can really do it as the big players on this continent.
Yes, but what they can guarantee is not really that clear, is it? And let's have a look at Farage Starmer's statement on using Russian assets. Let's have a look at that first.
First, that we must keep the military aid to Ukraine flowing, keep increasing the economic pressure on Russia, and to that end, alongside our partnership on air defence, we're doubling down on military aid. Already this year, we've taken our support to record levels. But on Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets.
I mean, so there's a statement just yesterday, from Keir Starmer saying we must keep the flow of aid coming into Ukraine. Donald Trump has just completely stopped the aid going into Ukraine, so they're not even on the same page there, are they?
Yeah, no, I think that was quite disappointing for Downing Street yesterday. You had Sir Keir Starmer in the chamber, and almost at the same time there were noises coming out of Washington that military aid was going to be stopped. And Sir Keir Starmer, when he was actually asked about this in the House of Commons, said he didn't think that was his understanding of the situation. And we fast forward only 12 hours or so, and that military aid has been postponed. So, and I think that just shows you the unpredictability of Donald Trump, and it just shows you how difficult it is for politicians in Europe to actually try and second guess exactly what he's going to do next, and that is going to be one of the big hurdles.
But also, I mean, he's been very critical of them for even saying that they can't do anything without America, and for coming up with no plan whatsoever. You know, he kind of urged them to come up with a peace plan. They met on Sunday. They didn't come up with a peace plan other than to say, we're going to come up with a peace plan. And so, you know, we are where we are, and the circle goes round and round and round. I mean, Nigel Farage yesterday asked Starmer a question about how many people he was willing to commit, how much money he was willing to commit, and for how long, and Starmer kind of just dismissed it. Have a look.
It may be a great irony that a Remainer Prime Minister used Brexit freedoms as effectively as he did yesterday. Indeed, as Number 10 briefed, we are now in a unique position compared to the rest of Europe, and yesterday was a triumph. I also applaud him making such positive words about President Trump and our relationship with America, even if nobody behind him agrees. But here's the key. President Zelensky has now accepted that he's going to sign the minerals agreement with America. And America's going to put in $100 billion or whatever it is, and thousands of Americans will be in Ukraine. Is that of itself enough of a security guarantee? No. Or does it mean that we need to send British troops? And if we do, given the size of our army, how many?
The mineral deal is not enough on its own. But can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
A statement coming from the government this morning, Ryan, saying that they remain absolutely committed to peace in Ukraine and are engaging with key allies, despite the fact that Donald Trump has paused US military aid to the country. So again, it's all a bit waffly, isn't it? Engaging with key allies, well, that's what you do. Absolutely committed to peace in Ukraine. Well, yeah, you already said that. You know, it's not going anywhere, this, is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think you speak to people in Downing Street and people behind the scenes who are actually trying to work on those deals, and those people who are closely involved. And it seems like there's a lot of movement sort of behind the scenes. Yeah. But again, talk has to turn into action at some point, and that's why I think the focus particularly will be in the next 48 hours or so, this big meeting of European leaders on Thursday. What role will Sir Keir Starmer have with them? Will he go there? Will he be speaking to them on the phone? But it seems like some kind of peace plan has to be drawn up very, very quickly. I spoke to Vladimir Zelensky on Sunday night, and he was actually saying that he thinks maybe the outline of some kind of plan could be drawn up within the next couple of weeks. And then you take that to Donald Trump, and then it seems if that will then be the green light for negotiations or talks with Vladimir Putin. Yeah. So let's just see what happens in the next sort of 48 hours or so. Right. I think for this week, I think Thursday's key.
And I get the sense, talking to Kira Rudik here and also talking to other people in Ukraine, that there is now definitely an acceptance by many people in Ukraine that there will have to be probably some form of land given up to Russia in order to get the peace deal through, because they know that without Putin there will be no peace, and Putin will not accept that he has to give up all of the land that he's acquired. He may give up some of it, but there's kind of an acceptance, I get the sense anyway, that Ukraine will now do that deal as long as they get assurances that he won't come back for more.
Yeah, no, you listen to all the language coming out of government. They talk about a durable, sustainable peace, but every single thing, whether you can have European security guarantees, whether it's planes in the sky, whether it's troops on the ground, but everything has to be underwritten by the United States. And as Sir Keir Starmer said in the Commons yesterday, you may have thousands of mineral workers in Ukraine, you know, when this deal is signed, but that will not really be enough. They feel like it has to go above and beyond that. So, yeah, let's just see what happens on the back of that minerals deal being signed. Again, when I spoke to Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday, he said they're ready to sign it. He said that officials, he may not be talking to Donald Trump personally, but officials from Ukraine are talking to the White House. So I think a lot of stuff is happening behind the scenes. I think we'll see some actions, some deals, you know, in the coming days.
Indeed. Let me just ask you about Lindsay Hoyle. A lot of people shocked and stunned at the profligacy of his ability to travel around the world. Ottawa, Montserrat, Tokyo, Delhi, Gibraltar several times, Cayman Islands, Jordan, Qatar, Brazil, Jakarta, Singapore, Canberra, Los Angeles, 180 grand. I mean, you know, how do you spend 25,000 quid on a trip to Jakarta and Singapore? I mean, I've been to Singapore. I didn't spend anything like that. And it was my money.
Yeah, this has come under the microscope. Looking at the costs, I think the flights in the last couple of years, I think around £180,000 alone. I think when Lindsay Hoyle goes on these trips, he takes a few staff with him, but it does seem quite extortionate, the amount of money that is being spent.
But what's he going there for? I mean, is he just glad-handing?
I think it's part of the sort of soft power, telling everyone about his role in Parliament. Some people will say, does he really need to go all that way? I see that some of the flights are business class or first class maybe, and I think you just wonder whether they try and lower the cost there. Chauffeur-driven cars when they're
He stayed at the Ritz-Carlton in Los Angeles. I mean, you know, that's one of the most expensive hotels in the world.
Yeah, I think questions will be raised, and
from the Marriott.
I think whether he can actually stay in a cheaper hotel, cheaper accommodation for him and his staff. The Commons Speaker and the spokesperson there has dug in and said this is a vital role.
Oh yeah.
But I think perhaps it can be maybe done a bit cheaper.
Yeah. Was that the spokesman had also been to the Ritz-Carlton business class to Los Angeles and back? Yeah. Well, thanks very much indeed. I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? Ryan, listen, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Great to talk to you. Only just started listening, says Mike in Shropshire. Loving the show. I call it Starmer's Coalition of the Wallies. Very good point. One from David. Morning, Mike. Great show. Thank you for my bumper sticker and letter. What is wrong with this government? I just wish they would protect our borders as much as they protect the Ukraine. We need to stop piling money into a war that cannot be won and win the one on our own shores. Absolutely right. Do send us a picture, by the way, David, of your bumper sticker, and we'll add it to the mural that we're putting together on our interactive map. And Alan in Merseyside, Starmer putting us front and centre over Ukraine makes us a prime target for Putin. Back off, Starmer, he says. Let's get a voice note from Bob.
Hi, Mike. Bob here from sunny Cambridge again. This coalition for the billing, who's going to be coughing up the wedge for this? Obviously, it's going to be us. All of a sudden, we can find the bunts to pay for this. NATO members have been remiss of funding thus far, and all of a sudden, they're going to be wanting to cough up. I very much doubt.
Yeah, well, indeed, that's right. 21 minutes past 8. Steve says from Middlesbrough, Ukraine's armour Starmer says we're at a crossroads. Well, it's a pity we got Benny in charge. That's very good. He's got a beanie hat on as well. You're all right. Coalition of the Willing. Who thinks of this guff? Well, Coalition of the Billing, as we just had from Bob there, maybe that's what we should call it. Yeah, the bill will be handed down to you. When Lindsay Hoyle's finished with his trips to the Ritz-Carltons of the world, if there's any money left, we'll send that to Ukraine. Brilliant, isn't it? 22 minutes past 8.
thought Donald Trump was embarrassing. I thought it was genuine. I think it was an embarrassment to your nation. And you know, I've been very supportive of lots of things that he's done.
Absolutely.
So this isn't TDS. This isn't Trump derangement syndrome. I thought he was ignorant. I thought he was a Putin's useful idiot. He's either being paid by Putin or there's some other compromise on him, because nothing else explains that attitude that Putin is a man he can do business with. No one can do business with Putin. He's a psychopath.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Coming up, we're going to talk to Tony Smith, former head of the UK Border Force. One of the things I've been saying for the past week, really, is it's all very well for Keir Starmer to make himself out to be, you know, the great saviour of the world, the man who's going to, you know, straddle the Atlantic and go to Washington and go to Brussels and go back to Downing Street and somehow have Euro summits and count all sorts of various leaders in and count them out and talk about solving the problem, when in fact he hasn't even managed to get the point to solve his own problems here at home with his own borders. You know, how can you start to say that internationally you're going to straddle the world and you're going to stop people invading foreign countries when you can't stop people invading your own country? And on page 10 today of the Sun, Tony Smith's written a piece in which he said it's not just small boats making a joke about borders. We also invited in 64,000 people to claim asylum by legal routes. You always used to hear the lefties going, well, what we should do is have more legal routes. Well, we've got plenty of legal routes, and 64,000 people applied. Thanks very much indeed. And also 592 people arrived in one single day over the weekend. One here from Sean in Yorkshire. Mike, I'm confused. This loan for Ukraine said to come from Russian assets. As it's a loan, will Ukraine be paying back the loan to Russia as it's their assets? Well, that's a very good point. How come we've given almost as much to Ukraine as the whole of the EU put together? Not really fair, is it? That it's always us here that pay out, says Pete the Mole. Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Got another one from H, who's now got a sticker, a home for common sense all day long. And we've got the picture as well to prove it. Thank you very much indeed. Alan in Merseyside says, Hoyle needs to explain to the House why he travels abroad so much and spends so much money. We deserve answers. Well, you just heard from Ryan Saby. He travels a lot with members of staff. Sounds to me like a jolly. How do you fancy going to Los Angeles for a week? Yeah, it sounds great. What do you reckon? You want to go business class or first? Oh, we'll probably have to go business, otherwise it might, you know, kick off. Where do you fancy staying? Well, you know, there's the Beverly Hills Hotel. That's quite nice. You know, the Polo Bar. I saw Sean Penn in there once. Yeah, that's good. What about the Mondrian? That's quite nice as well.
Order! Order! I will not tolerate such behaviour.
Yeah. How about the Ritz-Carlton, Sir Lindsay? Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, they do a nice Chateau Montrachet for about $200 a bottle. That's how he manages to spend 800 quid on subsistence. What an absolute Burke. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Let's talk, though, now to Tony Smith, former head of the UK Border Force, because, Tony, you got a great piece in The Sun today. Welcome to Morning Glory. Good morning. It's true, isn't it, that, you know, there's not much point in us going on and on about how we can maintain a border between Russia and Ukraine, and we can't maintain a border between France and England, and we can't protect Kent, never mind Kiev.
Yeah, so Mike, I was head of the Border Force, but I worked in that department for 40 years between the 70s right up until my retirement in 2013. And what struck me about these latest figures was we broke the world record, like for this side of the world, not the world, but I mean the record for this country. Yes. We broke it in terms of asylum intake. 108,000 people came here and claimed asylum in 2024. Yeah. Now, you know, when you break that figure down, Mike, you've got about 40,000 coming on boats. Yeah. You've got about another 5,000 coming on the lorries still. You've got a few coming by dodgy passports getting here that way, but you've still over 60,000 people, Mike. Now, these aren't actually, these aren't safe and legal routes in that, well, they are, but they're different sorts of routes. These are people that have gone into our embassies around the world and asked for a visa to come here.
Yeah.
Maybe to study, not to claim asylum, and we let in 79,000 people as refugees under resettlement schemes as well. These are people that were getting visas, coming here, that gets you on a plane, that gets you to the border, you get through the border, and then claiming asylum. Now, we fingerprint everybody, Mike, who applies for a visa.
Right.
We fingerprint everybody who applies for asylum. It's not beyond the wit of the Home Office to check back to find out which posts abroad are issuing visas to people ostensibly to come for a visit or for a student, and then when they get here, they're entering the asylum backlog. That is frightening for me. I think something needs to be done. There is a capability to find out exactly how these people are getting here. They should not be coming in on what we would call, visa routes, legal routes, and then claiming asylum. And more of them actually are coming across by that route than by the small boats, which gets most of the publicity.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, we got immigration figures just last week, didn't we, which showed that asylum-seeking numbers were going further and further up. I think up, 25% simply on the year before, because we are a soft touch. I mean, I think it's probably pretty well known around the world. If you come to Britain, you've got a much better chance of staying than you've got in any other European country. France will kick you out. In Scandinavia, you won't last long. Germany now going to kick you out as well. Spain too. Italy. We are the sort of the back end of the asylum business, if you like.
Yeah, but I mean, it was my job, Mike, some of my career to deal with asylum intake.
Yeah.
Targets to keep asylum intake down, and it went down from 102,000 in 2002 to 25,000 in 2005. So over three. Now we did that by a series of measures, Mike, to get asylum intake down, to stop people getting here illegally, putting the controls into France, doing lorry drops over there, all that kind of stuff we did. I don't know if anyone's got an asylum intake target in the Home Office anymore, Mike, but it doesn't matter. Nobody seems to really care about that. But as you say, there's a huge cost to people, to the government.
Yeah.
Continuing to allow people to get into this country by one way or another and enter our asylum backlog. Yeah. And then all the figures, you report on them regularly, on the costs of hotel, subsistence, whatever. Right. Even long-term costs of allowing asylum seekers to stay here on a long-term basis is economically, a disbenefit to our country. Right. So I'd like to say, well, what is our target? Now, it's impossible, really, for any country to stop illegal entry altogether. There isn't.
No, I get that. I
mean, we got it 25,000, and it's now 108,000, breaking the previous record, and that's what really struck me about these figures.
Yeah, but have we not really now got to consider changing the sort of the what you might call the directive or the thinking of the people who run these systems? Because when you look at the immigration panel judges who seem to think that anybody can stay in this country regardless of what it is that they've done. I mean, today we literally have the sort of migrant of the day story. One guy today who's a Jamaican gangster who shot some people, went to jail, can't be deported back to Jamaica because apparently the fact that he shot some people might be an impediment to him getting a job. Well, bully for him. Sorry about that. Off you go, matey. We then see today Rwanda's demanding the UK pay £50 million for its cancelled deportation scheme because they're now having a diplomatic row between Rwanda and Britain because we didn't give them all the money we said we were going to give them. And then you find out that basically the politicians of this country, the judges, all think that we should all be sitting here with open arms going, just bring it on, just keep coming, we're here to help you. Well, we'll have to stop that. We have to change our view, do we not, of illegal and legal migration completely.
Yeah, well, I was an immigration officer in the 70s and the 80s, Mike, and I mean, if I found anybody here illegally or they came up to my desk with a dodgy passport, I sent them. The power to remove somebody was in law by immigration officers upon authority of a chief immigration officer. The power now has been completely eroded by the courts. That now involves that if you want to try and refuse somebody, remove somebody, now you will get some kind of a judicial intervention. And as you say, the tribunal judges are now being exposed, as many of them, with very political sort of open border tendencies. So it's not the immigration officers or the border force that are controlling the border anymore, Mike. It's the judiciary. And that's why we're not able to do it. So I think you're right. We do need to look at the way that we construct our appeals system, our judicial systems, our review systems to say, do we not want to restore the power to the border force and to the immigration enforcement teams who are out there, if they find somebody illegally, to remove them from the country, which is what I used to do many to go. And I think that does mean a fundamental review of the 51 conventions. I mean, so I was doing this in the 70s, 20 years after the 51 convention. It was all right then. It's clearly changed because of judicial overreach and a number of, successive judgments and people, making these, judgments that human rights or, all kinds of reasons that you're reporting. People just can't go back for one reason or another. And we are, we are really, I think, it's getting ridiculous now to the point we have lost control of a lot of these cases.
Well, totally. And what do you make of the announcement that came just yesterday, I think it was, that we're going to start deporting foreign criminals now? They're going to put a crack squad, they say, of Home Office officials who are going to basically take these people out of prison sooner than they should have done, or sooner than they would have otherwise been spending time there, and send them back to their home countries. Sounds like something they should have done a long time ago, but maybe easier said than done, because no doubt there'll be all sorts of people trying to stop that.
I'm tired of these stories of crack squads and new teams and new commands and all that.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. In reality, these are political announcements. There already is a team of criminal caseworkers in the Home Office that try and casework these cases. But the fundamental problem is the one we discussed before, that, with foreign criminals are now, they go into jail, as soon as they get anywhere near release, they claim to stay on grounds of human rights and the courts are letting them.
Right.
In Home Office to go and try and isn't going to fix that, is it? It's what we discussed. It's about actually making sure these first tribunal judges are accountable. How are they appointed? Are they accountable for their decisions? Are they accountable to the public? Surely they must be accountable to somebody. And some of these judgments are perverse. And if we want to really get on top of deporting foreign criminals, we've got to change that system, not talk about crack new squads in the Home Office, which is actually going to be driven by funding anyway. And the Home Office won't get any more money this year. It'll probably be cut because of all the money going to defence.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I mean, at least if it's going to defence, that's something. But, I mean, they need to defend our own borders first, I think. Anyway, great piece in The Sun. Thank you very much indeed, Tony Smith there, who's written a book called Changing Borders, A Kingdom Unlocked. But a good piece. The former head of the Border Force, he's written in The Sun today, page 10. You see it there if you get that paper today. It's 8:36. Let's get a voice note from Neil.
Morning, Mike. Neil from Crawley. Regarding this protest in London by the farmers today, you know as well as I do, the police officers on the ground definitely do not want to arrest these guys. They're not bloody stupid. It's those idiots that sit above them that have directed them to do such things. Those bloody idiots that have come through universities and never done a bloody ounce of policing in their sodding lives. You know as well as I do, it's not the boys and girls on the ground. Yep. And I'll say that as a 33-year police officer myself.
Neil, I appreciate that. You are a police officer and I get it, but surely there's something the police can do. Just because they're given an instruction to arrest farmers, do they have to do it just because they're driving a tractor? I mean, come on. Doesn't have to be done, does it? Neil, thanks very much indeed. One from Steve. Mike, why is Trump withholding aid to Ukraine? Well, there's an EU meeting on Thursday to discuss Ukraine. This is Trump sending a clear message to European leaders ahead of it. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Steve. Absolutely. Coming up, Therese Coffey joins us, member of the House of Lords, UK Government Minister up until 2023. Used to work in work and pensions. Apparently there's a new deal for low-paid workers to get 80% of their salary when they're sick. OK, then. We'll see what that's all about. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's Mike Graham here. 8:39 is the story that you need to know. Pete in Redcar says, "Morning, Mike. Love your programme. It's Trump that's gambling with World War III, and who is running the USA, Trump or Musk?" Well, I think it's Trump. I don't think there's any question about that. Sean has sent us a lovely picture of a bumper sticker on the back of a red car. Hello from Cardiff, she says. One from where we are. David says, Mike, Starmer is no Trump, definitely not Churchill reincarnated. And one from somebody who doesn't give a name. It took me 10 years to earn what Lindsay Hoyle spent on expenses. Just saying. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people will be rather surprised by the amount of money that he's been rather profligate with, spending it willy-nilly in the Ritz-Carlton in Los Angeles and in, you know, the Shangri-La Hotel in Singapore. Very nice work if you can get it. What's he doing? Let's talk to Therese Coffey, though, member of the House of Lords, because there's some new information that has come out. We know this government's trying to stop people from claiming benefits for the rest of their lives. They're also trying to kind of, you know, completely reform the benefits situation. But one story that came out yesterday, more than 1 million low-paid workers in the UK are going to be entitled to 80% of their weekly salary as sick pay from the first day of their illness. Well, it's hardly an incentive not to go sick, is it? Surely it's an incentive to go sick, isn't it? Let's find out from Therese Coffey what she thinks. Therese, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, we're trying and get people off the sickness ladder, aren't we? I mean, we've got millions and millions of people who appear to not want to work and who have never worked, some of whom are genuinely unable to work, although I think that's probably a wider group than we should be allowing. What do you make of this Liz Kendall decision, basically to say that people who are low paid should be able to get 80% of their fee, or the money that they make, if they take a sickie?
Well, Mike, actually, larger employers tend to not worry about whether people go sick on day 1 or day 4. There's a historic link connected to national insurance. But the people that are worried are small business employers, and that's shown by the FSB. 3/4 of their survey, people surveyed, were worried about the changes likely to happen in the Employment Rights Bill. And this is a classic one of those. Now, I don't think we should be ungenerous. There are good employers. If somebody is sick and doesn't want to spread disease, as it were, there's normally a good relationship that can be had. I think the risk here is that with everything else, and there's no refund to small businesses like there used to be historically, then that is where it gives the impression that while this may seem a nice thing to do, and it is a nice thing to do, that they're not listening to the employers. And it's on the back of these small employers that we will actually see growth in the economy. So I think while these ideas may be well-intentioned, I wonder if it's too soon on the top of everything else, and that there should be more listening.
Yes, because I think the workers' rights problem is going to be a persistent one, isn't it? I mean, we've already seen yesterday that Jonathan Reynolds, the fake solicitor, has apparently decided he wants to reverse Angela Rayner's idea of having downtime, that, you know, you don't have to answer your phone, or you don't have to take an email or read an email if you're technically not working, which for anybody who's ever worked in any kind of job really is a ludicrous idea. And I worry that they're just legislating too much for things which should just be worked out on a sort of, you know, firm by firm basis, shouldn't it?
Well, the issue about sick pay has been going on for some time, and actually during COVID, I brought in regulations that brought in sick pay from day 1 because we didn't want people to feel that they had to go to work to earn money and then ended potentially spreading disease. So I do understand, if you like, the sentiment towards this. I think the other thing that is about that link, as I say, to people on very low pay. And of course, this will help people who say work 2 hours, well, more like 8 hours a week or something like that. Yeah. And that could be people who help at the Breakfast Club or other elements. But again, I wonder if the government, I think they probably are rushing in too soon to put this into legislation instead of proactively encouraging better discussions between employers and employees. Right. I mean, in terms of different aspects of the impact analysis, clearly there'll be people better off, no doubt about that. But for me, where I think the risk is that either people will not recruit, and in fact the FSB survey indicates not only will people not recruit, they'll start to lay people off in anticipation. So that is a wider concern. And if this is all being driven in order to reduce the amount of money spent on benefits, I strongly fear it will have the absolute opposite effect.
Yeah.
So all for having better relationships between employers and employees. Good businesses do that already. I wonder if this is a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Yes, I wonder whether it is as well. And as for the kind of trying to get everybody who could work into work, who hasn't worked, because we've now got a large number of people who are in that category who've simply never worked, you know, particularly in the age group from 16 to 24. I mean, how are they going to do that? Because they need to do it to save money, but they don't seem to have created any kind of reasoning as to how they're going to do it.
Well, this has been an issue that's been growing and emerging. I think one of the things that surprised me recently is that, candidly, it's in the interests of the country if the NHS were to focus more on people with anxiety and depression, or for the government to change the law. And I don't know if they have the appetite to do that. But in the recent elements about the NHS, mental health wasn't even mentioned. And even just a few years ago, it was about 200,000 young people were on sickness benefit due to anxiety or depression. That has increased hugely. I was about to say extraordinarily, but it's increased hugely. And that is where I think there needs to be much better join-up between Liz Kendall, between Wes Streeting, into really focus removing the barriers for people getting into work, but also being prepared to apply sanctions more liberally. And that's something that Labour has never been in favour of doing. But I'm afraid it does work when you put conditions that people aren't meeting, and that's taxpayers' money that's being spent, then those sanctions need to be applied.
Right. Let's talk about what's on the front page of the Telegraph today. Wes Streeting, Health Secretary, says that widening waistbands are costing the NHS £11 billion a year, and predictions that 3 out of 4 people will be overweight or obese by 2050. He says it's a massive cost to the NHS. Is it?
Well, I think a variety of people will suggest that being overweight will lead to other conditions having a bigger impact on people. To be candid, I think right now, they need to focus on what is the outcome that they want to see with the NHS. Right. I thought it was about trying to make sure we had healthy generations at all times. Being obese does not stop people working. So if they wanted to use that as an example, that is not the right way to focus. If they're thinking much later about the impacts of people being severely overweight, then there are levers they have today which they could start to deploy. So there's a variety of things, but I do think the NHS does, for what it's worth, long term, it's always wise to try and be of a sensible weight. I'm not pretending I'm a role model on that, but I'm just flagging that as a consequence, but that does not necessarily mean that people who are somewhat overweight are a burden on the NHS.
Yeah, but
it normally combines with other illnesses.
Exactly. I mean, you're an individual, you're a human being. It's up to you what you do and how you live and all of the rest of it. You know, I don't like this kind of nanny statism where you go, oh, you must be obese, you must be, you have to do something about that. We'll have to put you on some kind of programme. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? One final one. I must ask you about the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. I know you've moved on from that particular part, that place, as you refer to it now in the House of Lords. I mean, what's he doing in Jakarta and Singapore and Canberra and Los Angeles and Dublin and Israel and Cayman Islands? What's he doing?
Well, I don't know the details, Mike.
Well, I can give them to you if you want.
What I will say is that Lindsay...
25,000 quid for a trip to Jakarta and Singapore. You know, I could sell it to him for about a fifth of that.
Well, I'm assuming that also includes the cost of a couple of officials going with him. What started to happen on some of these global things like G7 and G20 is that parliaments have started to get involved and speakers' conferences. So if you like, this thing just grows and grows. Look, I'm a great fan of Lindsay Hoyle. I'm sure that he won't be entirely being mindful. He'll be mindful not to be wasteful. But I think there's also a desire for parliaments to assert their connectivity around the world.
I don't think so. I think it's completely unjustified. I completely disagree with you, but there we are. You can't be agree about everything. Trace Coffee, thank you very much indeed. You know, what is the point of Lindsay Hoyle? His job is to be in Parliament. His job is to work, 4 weeks a year or something like that when they happen to be in there. He doesn't even sit in for every bleeding debate that they have. So we've got a deputy speaker there as well. I wonder if she gets to go first class, or does she go in business, or does she go cattle class, goat class? She doesn't get to stay in the Ritz-Carlton. She's down the Hilton at the other end. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? How about this from Nan in Wales? Regarding Lindsay Hoyle, his job doesn't require travel. Why does he have access to these funds? If there's ever a time we need a UK Doge, it's right now. We are suffering whilst they live it up on our money. Nothing more disgusting than this. I'm ashamed of this country allowing it. Well, I absolutely agree with you. Sean from Dean from Dagenham, I should say. Morning, Mike. I wonder what Hoyle's view is on the net zero nonsense. His carbon footprint must be astronomical. More evidence of the politicians treating the taxpayers with utter contempt. It's sickening. Exactly right. I mean, I'm with you guys. I mean, what on earth is he thinking? Lindsay Hoyle, you're out of order, mate.
I will not tolerate such behaviour.
Absolutely right. Take yourself down to a place from which you will be taken again until you cheer up. And stop travelling. You know, you're not, Alan Wicker. I know that's probably one for the teenagers, but you're just not. I mean, who do you think you are? Michael Palin? No. Keir Starmer, David Lammy, they're all at it. You can't get a private jet these days. They're all booked out by the Labour Party and the Speaker. 10 minutes to 9.
If I can... No, come on. If I can qualify, my point is this. You sit there and you say this is a direct response to what's happened over the last number of years. I agree. What I'm saying is this might just be something that pushed them to finally sign on the dotted line, because it's been going on a long, long time. You could argue, could you not, that when he invaded in 2014, 2018, 2020, or 2021, whenever it was, 22, right? Why wasn't this, in terms of government defence spending,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:53. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Grew will be here. We're going to speak to Catherine Porter in a moment, independent energy analyst. We should tell you, though, there's a big red letter day for the fans of Meghan Markle. She's got a new Netflix series out. And just in case you've got a few hours to spare before you send the kids off to school, they're probably already in the car waiting for you to get in there. You might be a bit delayed because you managed to make a rainbow-shaped fruit salad for them so that they can eat that. If you've got the time, we've got the money.
You see where our rainbow is coming together here? And you don't have to do a big platter of this. You could do this with one small row for your kids for breakfast, genuinely, and it makes the morning a lot more fun. But can I just show you if you just made one? Just a little morning plate. It's a real delight in being able to be a present parent. And it's a luxury sometimes because we all have to work. We all have a lot of stuff to do, but when you can take a minute to just...
Saturday morning.
Finding the fun in those moments makes for a really sweet start to the weekend.
Yeah, really? OK, then. Somebody texted in and said maybe Harry could use the leftover fruit to spell the words help out in the garden. Everybody's flying over the place. Sorry. Catherine Porter's here, independent energy analyst. On the news, by the way, as if you didn't need any more disgraceful updates, £180,000 is what what's his name, Sir Lindsay Hoyle has spent flying around the world at our expense. It turns out we're also paying £180,000 an hour to stop wind farms from actually working. Goodness gracious me. What's going on, Catherine?
So we've managed to build wind farms on the wrong side of what we call grid constraints. So this is where we don't have enough capacity in our power lines to move the electricity from the wind farm to where the people are that want to use the electricity. And so then we have to turn them off. There's a wind farm called Seagreen that opened in October 2023. In 2024, that wind farm was curtailed 70% of the time. It actually spent more than twice as much time being told not to generate electricity than it actually generated electricity.
Right.
It's a massive waste of money for consumers.
I mean, some people might say, what was the point of building them in the first place?
Well, yeah, exactly. That would be a very good question. To knowingly build a wind farm on the wrong side of such a significant constraint is really hard to justify. Yeah. National Grid has had this, well, it's been instructed by Ofgem effectively to do something called connect and manage, where the priority has been given to connecting stuff up, irrespective of whether you can actually use the output. But Seagreen is a particularly egregious example of where that's going wrong and costing money to consumers. Right. Because what happens is they have to turn down the wind farm, then they have to turn up a gas power station somewhere on the other side of the constraint. So the consumer ends up paying twice. They pay for the gas to generate electricity they actually use, and then they pay the wind farm to not generate electricity they don't use. Huge waste of money.
I mean, what a great racket, though. I mean, imagine if you're a wind farm builder, right, or you're a wind farm operator. It's a bit like the old farmers used to be in the days of the EU. You've got a field that you don't use for anything, so you get paid not to use it.
Yes, exactly. And the reason they get these payments is because they have subsidies under the contracts for difference, and they only receive those subsidies if they're actually generating. If it's not windy, for example, then they can't receive any money. But if it is windy and they're told not to generate because the electricity can't be used, then they expect compensation for that, and hence they get these curtailment payments.
Right. Meanwhile, we were talking earlier about a story in the Mail about how if you are a pensioner wondering about whether you can heat your home, if you want to try and seek pensioners' credit in order to get the pensioners' fuel allowance, you just have to fill out a form which happens to have 450 questions on it, you know, which is not going to make it very easy. And another story, this is the Energy Watchdog saying this on the same page as the Daily Mail, that the Drax power station does not actually use sustainable wood. This came from Jonathan Brearley, the Chief Executive of Ofgem, basically saying that the power station has been burning timber from precious natural forests.
Yeah, so I mean that's not really new. We've known this for quite some time that Drax, claims that it's using waste wood, but the amount of wood that Drax needs, it would be very difficult to meet that with waste wood. This is another example of very poor regulation. That wood pellet biomass is actually dirtier than coal. So the emissions that come out of the stack at the power station are higher than they are with coal. But then the supply chain emissions are far higher because you have to cut down the wood, then you have to dry it, which uses energy, you have to pelletize it, which uses energy, and then you have to ship it halfway around the world. And because the calorific value of wood is a lot lower than coal, you need a lot more boatloads of it to feed into the power station. So overall, your shipping emissions are higher. So the whole thing is just not green at all. And it's very unfortunate that it's been designated both by the UK and the EU as being green and sustainable and therefore eligible for these subsidies.
Amazing. Are you hopeful that, given that we're now going to spend most of the money the government seems to be making or stealing from us on defence and on Ukraine, that they are going to actually halt some of these ridiculous net zero ideas?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's difficult to see where else they can get the money. Miliband wants to spend £22 billion on carbon capture, for example. That is a hugely wasteful project. Billions have already been spent on carbon capture around the world with very few results. So there's very little justification for the UK spending that amount. And if you look across Europe, where obviously most of the countries want to increase defence spending, climate budgets are one of the very few places they can take that money without affecting public services. So I do think we are going to have to see that. And we're also going to need to see some recovery in our manufacturing.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Listen, I've got to run. Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Catherine Porter, their independent energy analyst. Coming up, we're going to speak to Victoria Atkins, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, and much else besides. I'm Mike Graham.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, Oivamo slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspects in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 9, the final hour of the show. This is where I say, I don't know how we got here. It seems to have run absolutely like bonkers mad this morning. Very, very busy, of course. Lots of you sending in some great messages and some great voice notes as well. And we've been talking about a great many things, including what to do about Ukraine. Donald Trump overnight has basically stopped all military aid to Ukraine. This is after Keir Starmer said only yesterday we should be ramping up military aid to Ukraine. So they seem to have come to a disagreement about what should be done next. Keir Starmer trying to make a bridge across to America. It's more like the bridge in Avignon, isn't it? The one they sing about, which only goes halfway across the river. You can't get to the other side because the person who built it, I'm afraid, didn't work out what would happen after the first day. Keir Starmer had his big deal European summit meeting at which the absolute square root of naff all was created, where they went, oh yes, we must stand with Ukraine. How long for? For as long as it takes. OK, then, how much money does that involve? We can't say, but we've got some Russian frozen assets we can take some money from. Oh, it turns out, actually, no, we haven't got those, but we'll give you 2.26 billion anyway before we try and recall those Russian assets and we can sort of replenish the government funds. Well, you know, unfortunately now it looks as though Trump has now given up on Starmer, despite his oleaginous behaviour on last Thursday, where he kept putting his hand on his shoulder and saying, ooh, President Trump, ooh, isn't it nice? Ooh, look at you, sir, suits you, sir. Ooh, very nice, very lovely. Well, it didn't work, mate. So, you know, let's go back to the drawing board. Macron doesn't know what to do. Neither does old, whatever his name is, Merz, the new Chancellor of Germany. Giorgia Meloni has a bit of a clue, but she hasn't got any money. So, you know, we're all in a bit of shtuck, it would seem to me. Nobody more so than Volodymyr Zelensky, who had a meeting with Ryan Sabey from The Sun. We spoke to him. He's now willing, he thinks, to give up part of Ukraine in order to get peace, because in the end, that's the way it's going to have to go. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about Lindsay Hoyle, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, no doubt, the Speaker of the House of Commons, who spent 180,000 quid swanning around the world in all sorts of very fancy hotels. The Ritz-Carlton in Los Angeles, the Shangri-La in Singapore. He's been to Dublin about 3 times, been to Gibraltar a couple of times as well. He's made his way to Doha. He's been to India. He's been to the Cayman Islands. Who knows what he was doing there? That's an offshore place to bury your money if you don't want it to be taxed. What's he doing? Why is he travelling? He's the Speaker of the House of Commons. Stay in London. Do your job. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Hi, Mike. From Southend again, on Lindsay Hoyle, whatever his name is. Why don't people look at these people's expenses and have a look and see what they did, where they stayed and how they travelled before they become in position of whatever it is they are, like he's now the Speaker. For all we know, he probably stayed in the Premier Inn before he became the Speaker and travelled by EasyJet. And now look at him flying around first class, staying in the best hotels in the world. Surely that itself tells you that he's taking the mick.
Mr. Squicker. Yeah, exactly right. Taking the mick is right. Meanwhile, crime in this country is costing us 250 billion quid a year. What a nightmare. Coming up, Victoria Atkins MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. How about this from Chuck in Bolton, though? This is on this farmers' protest today. Mike, yet the useless Met took years to arrest the Just Stop Oil weirdos and currently appease the Palestinian protests. If you have a left-leaning cause, you're OK. You can do what you want. If you're a normal law-abiding right or centre-leaning citizen with a full-time job and you dare to protest, the Met will get you and you'll be labelled far right. Well, obviously they're going to be arresting some far right farmers today because they've said if you bring a tractor into London without permission, we will arrest you. Well, I mean, why? Why are you arresting farmers who've got perfectly legitimate reason to protest and have absolutely every reason to try and persuade the government to not put inheritance tax on their farms, which will ruin their livelihoods? For heaven's sake. Mark says this, Mike, great to know there's a coalition of the willing. Pity it's not a coalition of the able. Well, that's true. And Lynn says, Mike, what have France and the UK got in common? Both are members of NATO. Perhaps that is why Putin's not happy with the idea of their peacekeeping force. Extension by the back door. Well, I think that's absolutely right. And finally, Mark in Selby says this. Peter Blexley earlier suggested we fly US workers, should they start mining in Ukraine, into London to aid our economy. Sadly, those workers will be scared of being in crime-ridden London and feel safer back in Ukraine. Also, Labour will only tax the hospitality industry to a standstill if such a plan happened. Yeah, well, there is that. Let's talk now, though, to Victoria Atkins, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. She's down in Westminster for us. Very good morning to you, Victoria.
Good morning.
I don't know if you've seen any tractors coming up the road, but the Metropolitan Police have said that if they see any tractors which have not been given permission to enter our fair city, they're going to start arresting them. That seems a bit harsh, doesn't it?
It does, and look, I understand why people are asking exactly the same questions as I was asking myself over the weekend. If these tractors are taxed and lawful, then of course they're entitled to travel wherever they wish. But I hope that the Met will do as, in fairness, they have done with the previous rallies, which is work with the organisers. And the organisers, they're 5 farmers. They're not used to organising massive events in the centre of London whereby tens of thousands of people attend, and they've done an amazing job so far in bringing forward the November rally and then today's rally. And the focus today is going to be on the equipment that it costs to make us our pancakes that I hope we're all going to be celebrating tonight with Shrove Tuesday Pancake Day and making with our families. You know, we spend perhaps tens of pennies on making our pancakes, but the machinery required to help us make our pancakes, the combine harvesters, the tractors, the sugar beet harvesters, the cattle that are required to produce the milk, all of this I hope will be on display this morning in central London to put that point across, that these Labour ministers do not seem to understand the simple maths of farming, which is an awful lot of the time these farmers are not earning a massive income. I've heard, I've been contacted by farmers that may have farms worth millions of pounds in terms of the land they sit on, but their family have had that land for generations, and yet they're living on incomes of £20,000 or £30,000 a year. Well, how on earth are they to pay a tax bill of hundreds of thousands of pounds or even over £1 million? And this is the central question that Labour ministers don't seem able to answer. They've got their figures wrong. They need to axe the family farm tax and let farmers go back to their farms and do what we all want them to do, which is to grow food for us to enjoy.
Yes, absolutely right. And if you need any tips, by the way, on making pancakes, Meghan Markle's new Netflix series comes out tonight, so you can check that out, and she'll teach you how to make like nice little rainbow.
I think
Go on.
Sadly, I think I'll be washing my hair. Yes. Actually, I'll be making pancakes.
Yeah,
That's actually what I'll be doing. I'll genuinely be making pancakes.
Yeah. Have you got a sort of a specific pancake recipe or a tip for people making them?
No, all I know is that in my family there is the Nutella camp, my
Right.
son, and then there are the traditionalists, that myself, lemon and sugar. There is no other covering, no other.
You're not going
taste
down the
required for
chicken
pancakes,
tikka
simple lemon
masala
and
route.
sugar.
No, quite right, absolutely right. Let's
Goodness
talk a
me,
little
no.
bit about
Absolutely not.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the stories that's caught our eye this morning and has upset quite a few people here on our show, viewers and listeners alike. And it's the story in the Mail today about Sir Lindsay Hoyle's travels around the world. I mean, wonder why the common speaker feels like he needs to spend £180,000 of our money going to places like Jakarta and Singapore and Doha on behalf of the nation.
Well, look, I genuinely haven't seen this story, and I'm always a little bit cautious about commenting on a story if I haven't read it. But in principle, taking a step back, speakers down the ages have had a really important role to play internationally with ensuring that we, as the mother of all parliaments, and my goodness me, this beautiful building behind me, we should be proud of not just the age of our democracy, but also the fact that we can withstand the sorts of shocks and arguments and feisty election campaigns that we do. But at the centre of this lies that absolute commitment to an understanding of democracy. Speaker Hoyle, as with other speakers, I know does a lot of work overseas to try to help particularly emerging democracies build their parliaments, build their democracies. And so I imagine, I haven't read the report, but I imagine this is what these journeys have involved.
Yes.
But I would say one thing that has been bugging me recently is the hypocrisy of this Prime Minister and his private jet.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty relaxed actually about Prime Ministers flying. The one thing they don't have is time, and they need to use their travel time as efficiently and quickly as possible, because I'd rather they were in meetings than stuck in traffic jams like the rest of us, particularly here in Sadiq Khan's traffic jammed London. But so I've taken quite a relaxed approach to Prime Ministers having to use the travel they need to get to places quickly. today. Keir Starmer, you'll remember, a year ago was lecturing us about the then Prime Minister using private jets, etc., to get around the country, to get around the world. What is he doing now? Flying private jets everywhere. Right. And it's that hypocrisy that I think really goes against the grain for a lot of people. Today of all day, of course, being Pancake Day, no pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's not just Keir Starmer, it's David Lammy as well. He spent over £1 million on private jets, well, and Starmer's up to about 800,000, I think.
Yeah, and look, you know, as I say, I genuinely have always supported, and indeed Boris made sure that we had a plane decorated in the Union Jack, so that when we fly in, when our Prime Minister flies into a country, we can be as proud of that as the US are proud, for example, of POTUS flying around in Air Force One. You know, it's part of our positioning on the international stage. We want the United Kingdom to be a strong presence on the international stage, particularly at the moment. But let's not let Labour get away with their hypocrisy on this.
No, well, we're not going to. You won't be.
It undermines people's faith. Yeah.
You won't be surprised to know, Victoria, that I've got a little clip to play you, which is of Rachel Reeves just before the election.
Oh my goodness!
Telling us what she was going to do about private jets. Check it out.
We will crack down on Tory ministers' private jet habit. What is Rishi Sunak so scared of up there in his private jet? Meeting a voter? Well, we will properly enforce the ministerial code on the use of private planes and save millions of pounds for taxpayers in the process.
So far, not only has she not saved £1 million in the process, she's spent about 1.8 million. And as you say, it wouldn't matter if they weren't so hypocritical about it. And also, I mean, I don't think Rachel Reeves wants to meet any voters at the moment either, because I think they'd all say they were sorry they voted for her.
There is a standing invitation for her to actually get the courage together to come and meet farmers today in Whitehall. They're not even asking her to fly a private jet to a farm to come and visit them on their farm. No. They've come to Westminster today to try and meet her, and she is flat out refusing to meet them. It is shocking, actually. I cannot think of another Chancellor that would take that approach with a part of the voting public who have real problems with a policy where, you know, it's going to cost them their livelihoods, potentially cost tenanted farmers their homes and their children's futures, and yet the Chancellor is too grand to meet them. Well, guess what? They're going to be outside her front door today, so perhaps she'll pop down for a pancake. I'll be handing them out at the beginning of the race, so at the beginning of the rally, so I very much hope she'll pop down for a pancake, and I'll even squeeze some lemon juice on it for her.
There you go. And what about the other story we've got today for you, which is also Rachel Reeves related? This is for pensioners who have had their winter fuel allowance taken away from them. Another thing that Labour government said they would not do when they were in opposition. Apparently it turns out that if you want to apply for pension credit so that you can actually still get the winter fuel allowance, you have to fill out a form which includes 450 different questions on it online.
I know, and you know, I'm conscious. I have, I think, the 10th oldest constituency by age in the country, and so my office and I have been trying to help pensioners who have genuinely been terrified by the loss of their winter fuel payments. And of course, it's not just people who are on the grid. In my part of the world, in Lincolnshire, an awful lot of us, myself included, have to rely on oil tanks, and so that £300 really helped heat people's homes. But you're quite right. This is another broken promise. We've just heard about the private jet's hypocrisy. She promised she wouldn't go after pensioners. She has done. With the family farm tax, Steve Reed, City Steve, the Environment Secretary, said to farmers it was, and I quote, desperate nonsense when we said we think they're going to do this to inheritance tax. He said we were lying. Well, shame on him. And we know the massive impact that national insurance tax hikes are having on businesses and therefore on the rest of us as a result of Rachel Reeves' disastrous budget of broken promises. You know, these broken promises are really beginning to hit home now. And what is so sad, you know, this isn't just about political knockabout and, you know, us arguing across the floor of the chamber.
Yeah.
This is having real life impacts on people day in, day out, and whether it's family farms who are terrified about their future, whether it's pensioners who have been freezing this winter, or whether it's about people who are worried they're about to lose their job because in April suddenly businesses will no longer be able to employ them. These are all broken promises that are coming home to roost, sadly, for this Labour government and for the wider public. The truth is we just can't afford another Labour government.
No, absolutely right. And over in America, meanwhile, this is a message that Donald Trump put out. So the great farmers of the United States, get ready to start making a lot of agricultural product to be sold inside of the United States, because tariffs will go on external products on April the 2nd, because he's putting some tariffs on China and Mexico and Canada. So they actually really appreciate their farmers and they actually look after them.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And when I think of my own constituency, and indeed some of the amazing farmers who farm the land locally, not only are they working day in, day out to look after their farms. I was up in Cumbria on Friday meeting farmers and visited a dairy herd. They don't get a day off. They don't get to spend Christmas Day inside in their living room just enjoying their Christmas lunch. They have to, of course, go out and look after the herd that they care so very much about. And so not only do they do that, they are also the ones in my part of the world that, God forbid, if there's a flood, they're out on their tractors pulling people and cars out of floodwaters. If it snows, they're the ones clearing country lanes. They are an absolutely integral part of our villages and our market towns. And this is why when Labour puts this tax on family farms, it is an ideological attack, not just on farming families, but on rural communities and coastal communities as a whole. And that is shameful.
Yeah, totally.
It is also why, by the way, just in case anyone was in any doubt, we as Conservatives, when we're back in government, we will axe the family farm tax and the tax on family businesses, because we understand just how painful and damaging this tax is on our family businesses.
Good to talk to you. Victoria Atkins, thank you very much indeed. Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. He's out there making pancakes for the farmers while Rachel Reeves is hiding in the Treasury from them. As it's Pancake Day, says Cliff, I nominate Starmer as Tosser of the Day. Very good. Let's talk to Amy, who's in London. Hello, Amy.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, Mike.
How you doing, Amy? What are you going to tell me?
You referred to Starmer thinking he's Churchill. Well, sorry. Churchill said, we'll fight on our beaches.
Yeah.
Starmer says, come in.
Yes.
Rather than putting troops in Ukraine to protect their borders, maybe he should put our soldiers on our beaches to protect ours.
I know. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, the idea that we're going to be secure at home because we're sending a lot of money to Ukraine when we can't be secure at home because of all the people coming in from all sorts of places.
They're like Churchill did.
Yeah.
Protect our borders.
Yeah, absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more, Amy. Thanks very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Tony on Lindsay Hoyle.
Welcome to the Hotel Lindsay Hoyle. Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a taxpayer disgrace. Yes, there's plenty of room at the Hotel Lindsay Hoyle. Any time of day, you're a taxpayer disgrace.
He stayed in South Africa, right, at St Helena, in the southern Sunhide Park Sandton accommodation provided by the local governor. But he still managed to spend $23.5 grand. How does that work then? Do you fancy coming to St Helena? Oh, yeah, that'll be good. Isn't that where Napoleon ended up? Yeah. Do you fancy staying here? Yeah, OK, then. You need decent hotels? No. But we can provide you with some accommodation for you and your team. Oh, that's nice. Very nice. How much is that going to cost then? $23.5 grand. No, I don't think I'll bother, actually. There's not much on St Helena. They've got a big runway, apparently. That's about it. What are you going there for? Montserrat, he stayed at the Hotel Silk Cotton Villa. Very nice, too. In Delhi, he stayed at the Taj Mahal. That's a very nice hotel. In Gibraltar, the hotel wasn't known. Oh, this is good. In Jordan, he stayed at the Four Seasons. That cost you a few bob. I've been to a couple of the bars in the Four Seasons here in London. The St Regis Doha in Qatar. In Gibraltar, another one. And there's not. Now, this is interesting. Every time he goes to Gibraltar, it's not known where he stays. Do you think he's going to see somebody there? Maybe a private residence? I wouldn't be for me to say that, would it? That would be absolutely scurrilous. 21 minutes past 9. Coming up, Rupert Bell's here. We're going to have a look at Meghan and her new pancake recipe. Just spread out the pancakes to look like a rainbow. Harry, what are you doing? We'll be talking about him and her later.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. I've got a statement, by the way, from the Houses of Parliament. This is a spokesman for the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle, who says this about his travels around the world. Around the world in 180,000 quid is what I'm calling it. The Speaker is an ambassador for the House of Commons and has a responsibility to explain and promote the work of the House and to represent it at high-profile state events and inter-parliamentary conferences. Yeah. How much is that then? Well, in Tokyo, that cost £24,657.35. I love the 35 pence. What was that for? A pen? I mean, you know, in Delhi, the hotel Taj Mahal, total 21,500. I mean, how do you even spend this kind of money? You know, I take a family with me when I go on holiday. I mean, he's not going for 2 weeks, is he? He's probably going for a couple of days. How's he spending this money? Brazil. Hotel not known. Oh, really? 19,644 quid. Qatar, 12,000, relatively cheap for him, 913. The Cayman Islands, the Westin Grand Cayman 7-mile beach resort and spa. You definitely need to stay there, don't you, when you're explaining, what is it? The promoting the work of the House and representing it at high-profile state events. Yeah, we haven't got a swimming pool at the Houses of Parliament, but yours is very nice. How much? 22,785 quid. Do me a favour. Rupert Bell wouldn't even pay that for a holiday, and he's got loads of money. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, well, while you've been talking about sensible things, about like the tractor protest, the farmers' protest in London, you've made me watch since 8 o'clock an episode and a half of With Love from Meghan. Thank you, Mike.
I'm very sorry for you. I didn't ask you to do that, but I really appreciate that you've watched it so that nobody else has to. Let's have a look at the original trailer to give us a flavour of what we can expect.
I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it, surprising people with moments that let them know I was really thinking of them.
What? This is probably one of the most glamorous moments of my life.
It's magic.
I'm going to share some little tips and tricks. I see what color I gravitate to, and everything goes from there. And how you can incorporate these practices every day. That's what you want. You want that shape and texture. Come on. This is about connecting with friends. I love that we're doing this together for the first time. Making new friends. That is so good.
We're family now.
And just learning. Look at how much honey we have.
Do you believe in love?
We're not in the pursuit of perfection. Woke us all up. We're in the pursuit of joy.
The pursuit of joy. Oh my God. Is that what it's? Is that it then? We should introduce her to Lindsay Hoyle. You could probably spend a few quid there.
Can I just say, I've learnt one of the great things to do with yoghurt. Put it in a bowl with some fruit on top and honey.
Really? Now, that's, I never thought of that.
No, I've never thought of that. And she's not winning Bake Off, I don't think, because I've seen her make a cake, and I don't think Paul Hollywood would be particularly impressed with what she's done there. And look, she's the first episode. I think she's got her long-standing makeup artist with her, so she's got her friend, and of course he's gushing at all opportunities. It's not even filmed, as we know, in her house, and she says at various stages, well, I'm going to take it up to my house. Well, she's in this very expensive kitchen, cooking with very expensive, cookers, you know, lots of Le Creuset all over the place. You know, I just feel that the production staff are preparing everything. She doesn't look the most natural cook. Now, I may be wrong. I'm probably not the target market for this programme.
No, but I mean, how long? Is it half an hour per episode or something?
Well, no, the first one was 41 minutes. Luckily, the second one, I've only got about 10 minutes into the second one.
And you don't have to do a big...
and it's 37 minutes, the second one. So I'm hoping they get shorter as we go along.
Yeah,
but
by the time we get to episode 10, it's only 4 minutes.
Well, I think we've only got 8 of them to go through. But the point being, look, she's trying to create this wonderful idyllic, and nothing needs to be perfect. Well, there she is in this multi-million-pound villa cooking, and it just looks, to me, fake. Now, I may be wrong, but, you know, and of course she's talking about her children, how she likes, and I haven't quite got there, how she likes to make rainbow patterns for fruit. Now, I think we've seen it in trailers for her children. Now, and she also refers to in the first episode the before, during and after, and that's the only reference to her status, you know, what's happened to her in recent years.
Right.
But, you know, liking to make pretty bowls of fruit for your children, I mean, I'm sorry. What do most people do? It's 100 miles an hour, trying to give them good ingredients if you can, but this is just ersatz.
Well, it is. I mean, nobody's got time for this.
That's the problem for me.
Well, I mean, we've got the clip of the fruit. This is just ridiculous. Make a rainbow with fruit if you've got about 3 hours before the kids have to go out.
You see where our rainbow is coming together here? And you don't have to do a big platter of this. You could do this with one small row for your kids for breakfast, genuinely, and it makes the morning a lot more fun. But can I just show you if you just made one? Just a little morning plate. It's a real delight in being able to be a present parent. And it's a luxury sometimes because we all have to work. We all have a lot of stuff to do, but when you can take a minute to just...
Saturday morning.
Yeah. Finding the fun in those moments makes for a really sweet start to the weekend. We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds. Flour sprinkles, if we must. It doesn't need to be big for a party. It's how you incorporate these practices every day.
Yeah. I don't know how much time you have in the morning, Rupert, but that looks like a little bit too much like hard work. I've got this from Joe in Cornwall. He says, who on earth slices blueberries? Have you ever seen kids eating blueberries? Their faces and hands are covered in blue juice. Now slice the blueberries. What the heck for? Maximum impact. I guess it doesn't matter when the maid will clean the kitchen, the nanny will clean the kids.
Well, this is it. There is a row of staff, and yes, she's saying Saturday morning. But who puts flour sprinkles on their fruit? I mean, I'm sorry, that is just not what most people do. Is it, I mean, what does flour sprinkles cost? It might be expensive.
Where do you even get flour sprinkles? I don't know.
Well, I think you probably can. Look, I love a food programme. I mean, when you see things genuinely, I love the Hairy Bikers, love Keith Floyd when he was, burst on the scene. You see other, really interesting...
Nigella Lawson's a bit interesting.
Well, but she... this is what, in a way, Meghan is trying to create, this sort of Nigella feel. And there's talk, I haven't seen the Pamela Anderson one, but this may be a bit of a rip-off of what Pamela Anderson's done. I don't know for sure. But it just doesn't feel genuine. If it was genuine, why can't she do it in her own house and make it look like it's a house that's lived in? But there's a production crew cleaning up after her, probably mapping everything out and ready for her, and all she's got to do is pour it in to whatever jar she's making. And then the guest I saw said, well, that's the best thing I've ever eaten. Of course she's not going to say. We all know that when you see these food programmes, they always sort of, there's an element of fakery about it. No one's going to turn around and say, what you've cooked, Meghan, is a load of tosh, because that wouldn't actually be selling the programme, although it might be more authentic.
But it's also saccharine and awful, isn't it, though? I mean, it's just dreadful, the way she speaks, the way she claps her little hands together and goes, oh, it's all about joy. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, it is. Look, clearly I'm not the target market, and I'm a grumpy old man just like you are, Mike. So we may not be the target market for this programme. But at the moment, she's trying to lifestyle this programme. Are we going to see her jam? Where's she sourcing her raspberries for a jam? Yes, we've seen a nice shot of a place near her where she's picking blackberries and everything. But if she's trying to make this a commercial venture, she's got to be already out there sourcing the the good products to make it work and viable. But we're not really hearing anything like that. She's got the new brand now, As Ever, which has run into trademark difficulties in certain areas of what she's trying to do. So the whole program for me is disingenuous. Yes, she may like doing it, but I can assure you those hands do not look like they get out in the garden and are planting their seeds for this year's crop. I'm absolutely convinced.
And she hasn't even bought any of the stuff either. I mean, you know, I used to do a bit of this in my time when I was at Talk Sport. I used to do a little bit of a sort of a vodcast of cooking and shopping. But you made it funny, you know. You go to the pub, you go to the supermarket, you buy some things, take them home, cook them. You know, people actually quite enjoyed watching it. Oh, this is just awful. Dreadful.
Well, look, I'll let you know after I've seen 8 programmes, but I can assure you at the moment my heart is it's not anything original, and that's what it's beautifully produced and shot, and the music's all fine and dandy, but it's nothing original.
And does Harry appear in it at any point or not?
Well, I believe he makes a brief appearance at the end, but it's what we saw in this People article.
What, to do the washing up, presumably?
Well, it's about, you know, Harry is just so pleased to see Meghan getting back to what she loves doing best.
Cooking.
Putting things nice, opening up a packet of salted peanuts so that a guest can feel welcome, you know, and actually popping some corn in the microwave. Well, we've all done that. You know, there is nothing original so far. And as I say, looking at the food, I know she's saying that it shouldn't be about perfection, it should be about joy, but none of the food looks to me anything original at all. It's all so she can make herself look good. I may be wrong, and if it's a success, there may be plenty of people watching it because of her name, but the fact that she loves being the Sussex is such an important part of her life now. Well, if it's such an important part of her life, she better come back to Britain to rediscover why she is called the Duchess of Sussex.
She's only been to Sussex once for about 6 hours, isn't that one of the stories?
That may be the case. However,
and I go to Sussex every weekend, so I don't fancy her coming to Sussex anytime soon, thanks. Don't invite her.
Well, anyway,
I
better go and watch the rest of this highly entertaining programme. I will remember Pancake Day. I'm hoping she does make a pancake, but at the moment we haven't. Remember, this programme was supposed to have been launched in January.
Yes.
So they possibly have missed a trick to celebrate Pancake Day today as it should be.
Yes.
And maybe there should have been the children racing with pancakes around the garden, because pancake racing is part of the tradition of the day.
Of course. Well, they won't be able to do all that in America, though, because Harry will be told that's not what they do, is it? I mean, it's probably racist or something. Anyway, listen, good to talk to you. Rupert, enjoy the rest of the series, and do check back in with us and let us know what Harry's performance is like. Great to see you. Rupert Bell there, talking pancakes and a great deal of sense. Meghan, says JB, has said she always enjoyed taking something, ordering, elevating it. What happened with Harry then? Quite the reverse, it seems. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was always pretty ordinary, wasn't he? Doesn't Meghan just like two-tier Keir think the British people are all far-right racists? Yes. And Giselle has sent us a lovely picture, which I think is pancakes, on what looks like a very fruity plate. I think Meghan has stolen my breakfast plate design. Well, she's stolen everything else, you know, because apparently she's been accused of stealing Pamela Anderson's show, wearing the same kind of hat. She's been accused of stealing the name As Ever from a Chinese clothing company. She's been accused of stealing the American Riviera Orchard name from somebody else who was using that. And I mean, it's not going very well at all. And we've tracked down the original one from Mark in Selby. I'm surprised Harry's not spelled out the word help using fruit from his ball and chain breakfast platter. Let's get a voice note from Dave.
Good morning, Mike. Dave in Spain here. I just heard you praising up Pamela Anderson there, and I agree with you. But be very careful. I think she's a vegan. Woo!
Is she? Well, listen, I've got nothing against vegans. I mean, Kevin O'Sullivan's all right, even though he's one. It's 9:38.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:40. Lots and lots of you have got lots of great messages coming in. We've got much to say about the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle. One from Lorraine says, Lindsay Hoyle needs to revisit his job description, remain in Parliament rather than jetting around the world on jollies. Let's not forget his appalling conduct when he suddenly denied, after an apparent clandestine meeting with Starmer, the SNP their right to question Gaza, allowing sly Starmer to squirm out of a difficult situation. Well, this is the thing, and that's not the only time he's done stuff like that either. Do you remember when he shut down all sorts of comments about the Southport situation as well? And he's also silenced quite a few people on a variety of subjects. But, you know, we'll come back to that story in a moment. Let's talk to Oliver Harvey now, chief feature writer at The Sun. He wrote a great piece this week about the situation that's visiting Ireland right now. You know, I see an awful lot of it on social media, but he's actually gone down to see what's going on in Ireland, where they've got a massive immigration problem, vigilantes on the streets, arson, a stabbing of a rapist, a migrant crisis which has been going on now for months and months and months. Tent cities popping up across the country. It really is quite remarkable. For a country that I used to visit on a regular basis, I haven't been there for a long time, you know, it sounds completely different to what it was like just even 15 years ago or so. Oliver, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thanks for joining us. I mean, I've been watching with some alarm on social media what's been going on in Ireland, and it's always difficult to know when you're just watching it on social media whether, you know, you're seeing something being taken out of context or you're seeing something really bad happening. But it seems to me from your piece that it really is a kind of crisis of huge proportions for the country.
Well, Mike, you've been there a lot, same as I have, and you still get a very friendly welcome over there, even as an Englishman. But at the moment, Ireland, 1/5 of people living in Ireland were born abroad. And that, of course, includes people that are born in England with Irish relatives and so on. But that's quite a stark figure. And it's been taboo for quite a few years in Ireland to discuss immigration, because obviously there's been great immigrants all around the world, UK, Australia, France, but now it was a live issue at the general election there in November, and as you say, it's taking in a lot of asylum seekers who have been housed often in towns and villages out across Ireland, and that has caused some protests, a lot of the time completely peaceful. There's one down in Rosslare Harbour, which obviously where ferries come in from the UK, a lot of ferries anyway, and they were protesting outside a place that was supposed to be a nurse's home, and after over a year protesting, they won their battle. But that's not been the case everywhere, and people, very unscrupulous and not very pleasant people, have taken matters into their own hands and torched a lot of these prospective asylum centres.
Right. And so do they have the same kind of, I suppose, solution to this that we have, where they put them up in hotels for a while and then they try and find them accommodation? Because it looks as though, from what your piece says, there's a lot of like tented villages that have sort of grown up, which obviously nobody wants to see.
Well, they kind of, as you can see from the images, they got rid of a lot of the tented villages, the tents that were in Dublin alongside the canal and outside the IPO offices. But they are housed. There is what has caused some friction is that there is a housing crisis in Ireland while taking in many asylum seekers at the same time. So there is a housing crisis, and that has caused consternation in some quarters. I think there was a leaked report last year saying that Ireland was short of 500,000 houses. So there is friction there, and so a lot of migrants have been housed or prospectively housed outside Dublin in towns and villages across the place. And we went down to Enniscorthy in Wexford, a historic town down there, and 500 locals were marching through the streets last month because they didn't want a prospective asylum seeker hostel or accommodation on their doorstep.
Right. And how are these people getting to Ireland? Because many of them are coming from places like Nigeria, Jordan, Pakistan, Somalia, Bangladesh. Are they coming directly to Ireland? Are they coming through Britain? How are they getting?
I think a fair few do come through Britain, and the Irish police have been stopping people coming across the border. They don't police on the actual border. When the buses come from Dublin, they do make checks. So yeah, I think a lot were coming through here.
Yeah, I mean, and that is a bit of a worry, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, it means that people, I know that some of the people, when they thought that they might be getting sent to Rwanda, certainly made the journey across to Northern Ireland, and I guess it filtered the way down to the Republic. But I mean, it's incredible how this is affecting so many countries in Europe now. And you would have thought Ireland, being the furthest away in a way from mainland Europe, would be the least affected. But it seems to be more badly affected. They've also got 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, 6 times more per head of population than we've got.
Mike, it's a land of 100,000 welcomes, and the Irish have been incredibly generous. Who they taken, as you say, Ukrainians, which. You know, they have made great. They've been very generous on that. But it's a small place. You know, it's limited.
And it's having repercussions. And it's having repercussions on the political system, presumably as well, because obviously a lot of this has happened as a result of the kind of open borders EU style policy that certainly Leo Varadkar was advocating a long time ago.
They haven't had a kind of insurgent or far-right party like the AfD in Germany or Le Pen's National Rally in France. They, in a way, Sinn Féin are their kind of working class party there.
Yeah.
But they are or certainly have been.
They're quite pro-migrant, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, because was it Michelle O'Neill, the leader of Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, I think, said that she wouldn't go or take up an invitation to the White House because of Donald Trump's policies on Gaza.
Yeah.
You know.
And you have got people, internet sort of provocateurs, stirring things up. You know, they're saying, going outside asylum centres and shoving cameras in people's faces, saying, "Go back to your country," you know, for clicks.
Yeah. Yeah, well, also because they probably want them to go back to their country as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
But, you know, that's the thing. Listen, great to talk to you, Oliver. It's a great piece. Thank you very much indeed. Oliver Harvey, Chief Feature Writer at The Sun. By coincidence, just got some new figures, by the way, on Channel migrants from yesterday. 182 arrived on 3 small boats. I think it's quite permissible now to declare that these are not small boats anymore. You know, 3 small boats with, you know, that's 60 people pretty much per boat. That's a big boat. And those are big dinghies, and they're no longer just the sort of things that you can blow up that you bought in the local, you know, sort of, you know, beach shop. You know, these are professionally put together ribs, which are carrying as many as 60 young men of fighting age all the way not only to the UK but also to Ireland as well. Takes the total over the past 3 days during the nice weather to 842. Means that 26,140 Channel migrants have arrived since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. 2,898 arrived so far in 2025. So keeping the borders secure is not really quite working out in the way that he said it would. Smashing the smuggling gangs is also not working. What's he doing, Keir Starmer? You know, never mind glad handing it around the world, going to, you know, the White House and, you know, inviting foreign leaders into Lancaster House in London to tell us all how you're going to control the Ukrainian situation. You're not doing it. You're not doing anything right. Keir Starmer is still as useless at being Prime Minister for the world as he is at being Prime Minister for Britain. Thank you very much indeed. It's coming up to 9:49. Sarah says, surely if you pay your tractor road tax, you can drive it anywhere you want. I'm not sure you pay tractor road tax, do you? Sue from Chelmsford says, Mike, I remember the first coalition of the willing was in 2003 with Bush and Blair to invade Iraq, a disaster for the region and for many of our soldiers. And it was all, of course, perfectly legal. And, you know, just ridiculous, isn't it? Morning, Mike. It's Roy in his Volvo. Will Meghan ask Harry to help her do the pancakes? You know why. Yeah. Thanks very much for that. Let's be honest, Mike. Old Kev looks like he could do with eating a few 12-ounce ribeyes. Goes well with a nice Malbec too. Listen, I've had a very angry Kevin O'Sullivan texting me to say, I'm not a bloody vegan. That's not exactly what he said. He used another word. Vegans don't eat fish, eggs, cheese or drink milk, all of which I do. Well, no wonder he's always late for work. It's 9:49.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:53. I got this from Joanna in Salisbury. Morning, Mike. Megan's fruit rainbow. I'd love to see her children come in, squeal, have a tantrum, and refuse to eat like most small children you're trying to hurry for breakfast. Yeah, that would be good. And Mitzi says, morning, Mike. Do you think someone could write something rude in alphabetic spaghetti to Meghan Markle? Yeah, absolutely right. And Sue says this. She lives in Surrey, Sussex, rather permanently. I'd hate for Meghan to come here, says Sue. And Victoria from Newbury. Labour ministers have always used private jets. I used to be a corporate flight attendant, and we had Jack Straw on board on many occasions. Jack Straw was actually a very nice man in his red M&S jumper. Yeah, no, they love a private jet, the socialists. I mean, you can't get them off them. You know, anything for free. What about Lindsay Hoyle? For heaven's sake, let me just have a quick recap. You know, where did he stay at in Canberra? The Hotel Realm. Blimey, 40,599 quid. That's a lot of full English breakfast, that, isn't it? Ottawa, the Hotel Fairmont Chateau Laurier. I've been to Ottawa. I stayed in a hotel there. It didn't cost 23,571 quid. I think my bill was about $400. What's he doing? Tokyo, the new Otani Tokyo and Hotel Okura, Kyoto, £24,657. Deary me. I'll tell you what, if you watch and listen to this show, you can get a lot of stuff for free, right? And we're going to talk to Paul in Norwich now, who's the golden ticket winner, believe it or not, of our amazing bumper sticker giveaway. It started last week, and it's just sort of ballooned into something much bigger than we ever thought it would be. We're in the midst of getting some more bumper stickers printed because the original batch was eaten up by all of you, thousands of people who asked for them. You can get one that says the home of common sense. You can get one that says something about Mike Grove's Morning Glory, and there's a third one as well, I think. These are all stickers that have been sent in to us. Stay calm and listen to a talk. And let's talk now to Paul in Norwich, because he's won the golden ticket. Because when we were sending all these things out, I was asked by the powers that be to write in one of the letters, you have won the golden ticket. And here he is, Paul in Norwich. Paul, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike. Pleased to see you.
Very good to see you too. Have you got the ticket, the golden ticket letter in front of you? Can you hold it up and show it to us?
I've got the golden ticket.
You've got the golden ticket.
I've got the letter.
And there it is. There's my fine writing. My writing's terrible. It's like a doctor's prescription writing, but very good. Well done, you. So listen, the prize is you're invited to come and see us here at Talk Towers. We're going to give you strict access to watch Plank of the Week. Filmed with Chuck, of course, our very good director, a tour of Talk Towers, and then we're going to go for a few beers. So, I mean, you might want to make sure that you don't hang around too long, because most people that end up drinking with me don't find their way home very easily. But if you'd like that as a prize, we'd be very, very happy to host you here.
I look forward to it very much.
OK, well, what's going to happen now is we'll put you in touch with some people who can arrange when it's good for you. Do you work in Norwich, I presume, do you?
I've retired now, Mike.
Oh, have you? So you've got plenty of time on your hands then.
More than enough.
Excellent. And what about your favourite show on Talk? I must ask you that.
Well, it's got to be Morning Glory.
Good answer. And I mean, and this morning we've been talking about a great many things. I mean, people say to me, one of the problems with your shows, it's great, we love watching it, but it winds us up terribly wrong. I mean, Lindsay Hoyle travelling over all around the world for 180,000 quid. I mean, that's got to be the killer, isn't it?
Well, out of order, Mike.
Sure, very well said. Totally, absolutely great. Well, listen, brilliant, Paul. Good to see you, and we'll see you in the next, I guess, couple of weeks or something. We'll sort it out. We'll get you down. Maybe wait for the weather to take a bit of a nice turn for the sunny shires of London, so we can take you down. There's some nice pubs down by the river we can go to. So we'll sort that one out.
I'll look forward to it very much.
Looking
forward to seeing you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Paul in Norwich, the golden ticket winner. It's always a good thing to spread the love, is it not? A couple more tweets to give you that have come in because so many of you are upset with Lindsay Hoyle. Han Ratty, Alan says this in Middlesbrough. Doesn't Lindsay Hoyle not measure the impact he's having on our net zero goals and the size of his carbon footprint? Hopefully he's offsetting it. Joke, joke. I'm amazed we don't have a new environmentalist group protesting outside Parliament. Well, we don't, do we? Just Stop Hoyle. See what he did there? Very good. That is actually very good indeed.
Order!
And Dean says, Mike, if the Speaker is a guest promoting our democracy in, by coincidence, very sunny places across the globe, why aren't those who extend the invitation paying for it? That's the way it works, isn't it? Well, yeah. Normally speaking, you would say, if you're being invited to Canberra, the Hotel Realm, you shouldn't be given a bill for 40,599 quid, should you? If you're actually there to expand your knowledge of other parliaments. The Cayman Islands, I don't really understand why you would go there, because it is a tax haven. I mean, that's where people bury money they don't want anybody to find out about. And when I've gone, I mean, Julie Hartley-Brewer's going to be in a minute. I'm going to be asking her, because she likes the odd holiday. I don't say that with any malice or forethought. But, you know, the Cayman Islands, 22,785 quid. Blimey. Verona. They don't have a parliament in Verona. The two gentlemen they have in Verona. £14,585. This is Lindsay Hoyle's tours of the world. Julia, very good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, listen, you like a holiday.
I like a holiday, yeah, but I do it on my own buck. I don't do it on anyone else's expense.
But I've been to Singapore, right?